Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. All right, cool, works. Yo, what up? What up, Captain Homer? How goes it? Yeah, I just walked my dog to the store. Got some cash out because I ordered some weed maps, so I'm waiting for a weed delivery. I got a quarter of some Hindu Kush. And then I stopped at the burger spot on the way back. So I got a double cheeseburger and some French fries. So I'm ready to party with this Senate Banking Committee hearing. How's your day going? Let's see here. Once I start this poll, we'll start the hearing. All right, cool. All right, that's all set up. All right, so what up, Carlo? You ready to party, pal? What's up, Carlo? This dude just went on a walk. This is Carlo the Husky. He'll be hanging out with us for the next 2 or 3 hours, watching these Senate hearings that happened as of today. So we got some fresh hearings, guys, hot off the press. Let's see how they go. This one just came out today, as you can see. June 23rd, 2026. Titled Senate Banking Committee holds hearing on the affordability agenda. So this should be pretty good. I haven't seen it yet, so it's hot over here in Los Angeles. It's like humid. It feels like I'm in Jamaica or something. But anyways, all right, I'm gonna hit the play button. Please hit the like button. Thank you.
Thank the witnesses for taking the time and making the investment of your talent for this committee to appreciate the issues that are challenging so many Americans around the country. So I really appreciate you guys being here. Our committee seeks to answer a simple question. How do we make life more affordable for families in South Carolina and frankly, around the country? That is a question I hear all the time at home. How do we make this economy work for families who are already...
The only way to make this economy more affordable is to impeach, remove, and imprison the Orange Man.
Hard, but too often there's...
So blue wave tsunami, guys, midterms. Maggots only got 4 more months.
Too much month at the end of the money. Housing is too expensive. Food is too expensive. Borrowing is too expensive. Everyday life is simply too expensive. A family in Walhalla, South Carolina, trying to buy their first home, a small business owner in Greenville trying to expand, or senior citizen in Rock Hill, South Carolina, living on a fixed income, should not have to wonder whether Washington understands what it means to choose, and I mean this sincerely, to choose between prescriptions or groceries. Affordability is not created by government programs, more red tape, or more spending we cannot afford. Affordability comes from promoting competition, innovation, and opportunity. That is why Senate Republicans have been focused on results that will bring relief to everyday Americans. We are approaching the 1-year anniversary of the Working Families Tax Cut Bill, a bill that has put more money in the pockets of Americans who desperately need it. Because of this bill, 97% of Americans received a tax cut this year. 97%. And the people who benefit the most are people earning less than $200,000 a year. Hardworking American families will take home nearly $300 a month more because of the Working Families Tax Cut Bill. Let's not forget, every single Democrat in the Senate voted against cutting taxes, which would have led to a $5 $5 trillion tax increase. This committee has already advanced efforts to improve housing opportunity, create clear rules for digital assets, strengthen our markets, and make the financial system work better for everyday Americans. Our 21st Century Road to Housing Act, which just passed the Senate by historic margins, I think it was 85-4 yesterday. Almost nothing happens in the Senate. Nothing happens in the Senate. 85-4. We cut red tape. We are unlocking housing supply and preserving local control. I look forward to President Trump signing that legislation into law. The Genius Act, signed into law last year, established a first of its kind regulatory framework for payment stablecoins, fueling financial innovation in America and creating economic opportunity. The next step is solidifying American leadership in digital assets, in completing market structure legislation, and I'm proud of this committee's work to advance Clarity Act on a bipartisan fashion. Beyond legislation, we also have pushed for better implementation of my Credit Score Competition Act. So millions of Americans who are today credit invisible will have an opportunity to earn the kind of credit scores and interest rates that they deserve by populating all of their information on the credit scoring agencies. And we have supported thoughtful regulatory right sizing that helps protect.
Yeah, and then Elon Musk and all these oligarchs will use that information against us. Nice try, pal.
Without driving up the cost of credit. Unfortunately, too many in Washington still believe the answer to every problem is more government. We saw this during the Biden administration. Reckless spending and heavy-handed regulation made life more expensive and made it harder for businesses to invest, lenders to serve their communities, and builders to build. We should be clear, regulations, they have a cost. When Washington makes it harder for a bank to lend, a business to invest, a builder to build, and an entrepreneur to grow, those costs do not disappear. They show up in higher prices, fewer choices, and fewer opportunities for American families.
Hey, what's up, Al? Hey, good to see you.
That is why cutting red tape is also an affordability issue. Agencies should protect consumers, not be weaponized for a political agenda. The Biden administration should never have used
This Scott guy's ridiculous. That's exactly what the Orange Man is doing. They're using it to go against their political enemies and everything. Man, all these MAGA politicians have absolutely no spines.
To target disfavored financial sectors, restrict access to credit, or punish responsible lenders. That made it harder for families and small businesses to access credit while making financial products more expensive. Senate Republicans are working to bring these costs down. At the same time, the Biden administration was working to raise those prices.
Senate Trumplicans are destroying the country. I can't wait till this clown stops speaking and we get some real politicians debunking all his narratives.
Families in South Carolina and across the country are still living with the consequences of the Biden-era policies in their monthly bills, their mortgage payments, and their household budgets. Families do not need more slogans. They need lower costs, better opportunities, and a government that gets out of the way as Americans try to build a better life. Today, I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about practical steps we can take to lower costs, expand opportunity, improve affordability, and reduce unnecessary regulatory burdens without growing government. Senator Warren, you're now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, finally, someone with a brain. Senator Warren. Let's go, Senator Warren. Hold all these clowns accountable.
Holding today's hearing on affordability. It's only Tuesday and our committee's already had a big week. Yesterday, the Senate passed our 21st Century Road to Housing Act, and now the House is on its way to passing it too. This is the biggest housing bill in more than 30 years. It will help build more housing, bring down costs, and for the first time ever, stop private equity from snapping up homes that families are trying to buy. And your leadership helped make that happen. Our housing bill is an affordability accomplishment that everyone on this committee can be proud of. But it is not nearly enough to offset the economic policies of President Trump and the devastating impact that they have had on American families. So let's set a baseline. When Trump took office, inflation was down to 3% and headed down. The first thing he did was slap tariffs on nearly every item from nearly every country. These tariffs will cost the average American household more than $2,500 this year. Now, the Supreme Court struck down these tariffs as illegal, and the administration has not lifted a finger to give consumers a refund on the very high prices that they pay. Then came Trump's illegal war with Iran, which caused energy prices to skyrocket. The impact of the war continues to jack up costs for every single sector of our economy. Families have spent $43 billion more on gasoline alone than they would have.
Oh, yeah. If it wasn't for Trump's illegal war and his unlawful tariffs, we would all have an extra $5,000 in our pockets right now, guys. Go on a vacation, you could buy a used car, down payment for a new car, you could fix up your house with it, buy some new furniture. Oh, yeah, because of Trump's incompetence, he's stealing our money. Anybody get any of those Doge checks yet?
Had never started this war. Trump spent billions to cut renewable energy projects, the kind of energy that would actually lower utility costs. And Trump and Republicans have sent health insurance premiums soaring, with next year's premium hikes already on track to rival last year's record-breaking increases. In between these disastrous policies, it has been nonstop Trumpian extravaganza of corruption and incompetence. Anti-consumer mergers that will drive up costs for everything from cable TV to credit cards get rubber stamped under the shadiest possible circumstances. The CFPB, which has returned more than $21 billion directly to families that have been scammed, has been hollowed out and sidelined. Doge fired the USDA team responsible for preventing screwworm, and now an outbreak threatens to bankrupt.
Oh yeah, an orange man gave us all screwworm. Now we're eating now under Biden we were able to eat steak and lobster, but now under Orange Man we got deep fried screwworm and what else we got? We got RFK Jr. approved liver, top ramen.
And send already high beef prices through the roof. And one white-collar criminal after another gets DOJ dismissal or a Trump pardon, sending a clear message that it is okay for wealthy insiders to rip off families and consumers. And what's the result? Inflation now sits at its highest level in 3 years, 4.2%, nearly double what it was last year. Americans are paying more for groceries, for healthcare, for gas. The Federal Reserve is forecasting higher inflation, higher interest rates, and slower growth. And the American people can see plain as day that as the economy gets worse, Trump gets more chaotic. Trump focuses on building his golf course and his giant ceremonial arch, getting the right marble for his taxpayer-funded gold-encrusted ballroom, with no thought to the rising costs that are bearing down on Americans. The same guy who ran for office saying he would tackle inflation on day one now calls affordability a, quote, hoax, and a, quote, made up word. He says, quote, I don't think about Americans' financial situation. He says that he, quote, loves the inflation. Trump doesn't care about hardworking Americans. He cares about making himself richer by cutting crypto deals and making thousands of stock transactions with companies whose value he can boost with deregulatory policies or giant government contracts. Trump's billionaire friends are along for the ride. They're getting richer by the hour, while American families are stuck with the bill. The world just got its first trillionaire, and the Trump family's wealth is up by at least $2.3 billion since just last year. And meanwhile, Americans' real wages since Trump was sworn into office 18 months ago have fallen. Mr. Chairman, I am glad that we are having this affordability hearing today. It is a stark reminder of the president's failures. Americans want Washington to make affordability our first priority. And instead, all Donald Trump is offering are higher prices, more chaos, and unprecedented corruption. I look forward to our conversation today.
Thank you. I now recognize our first witness, Mr. Cody Carbone, Chief Executive Officer at the Digital Chamber. You now have 5 minutes.
Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Warren, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm honored to be here this morning. My name is Cody Carbone, Chief Executive Officer of the Digital Chamber, the world's largest digital asset and blockchain trade association. Our members span more than 250 companies, from the world's largest exchanges and banks to startups, innovators, builders, and developers. I'm here to talk about how digital assets can make life more affordable by calling attention to
Hey, Mike, I got a better idea. How about you and all your MAGA cult member, Orange Bollock and buddies self-deport back to Jonestown? That sounds like a good solution.
Facts most families never see, but they feel. The cost of moving money and the cost of moving assets. It's simply too expensive and takes too long to move money and assets today. Nearly 1 in 4 American households live paycheck to paycheck. And the Federal Reserve reports more than a third couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing. For those families, a credit card swipe fee or a 3-day hold isn't just an inconvenience, it's an overdraft, a late fee, or a payday loan. Yet digital assets and blockchain are the
Hey, what's up, Selena?
real chance in decades to help people move the money they've earned more easily. To make sending money as simple and efficient as sending an email, and to end that tax. Today, I will discuss how digital assets can help lower costs in 3 areas. First, the cost of moving money across borders. Americans send more money abroad than any nation on earth, more than $100 billion last year. It costs 6.5% to send, more than double the international target, and takes 3 to 5 days to arrive. That's more than $6 billion a year skimmed out of working families' pockets. A worker sending $100 home to a foreign country sees only $93.50 arrive.
Hey, Mike, we appreciate free speech. We appreciate your opinions and everything, but I had to put you in a 5-minute timeout because you're getting annoying. You're spamming, buddy. Feel free to come back if you can control your comments to maybe like once every few minutes or something.
However, if they were using a dollar-backed stablecoin, that family keeps the full $100 and receives it in seconds. The same wall hits the freelance designer in South Carolina, paid by a client in Europe, or a manufacturer in Ohio, paying an overseas supplier, which is why business-to-business payments are already the single largest use of stablecoins today. The rails work, and cheaper cross-border payments make American businesses more competitive. Second, closer to home, more competition in everyday payments. There's real cost embedded in how we pay today, and Americans deserve more choice. A regulated stablecoin is one more option. Cheaper to process, settling in seconds, and it's a tool banks can offer too. Under the Bipartisan Genius Act, banks themselves can issue these products. This isn't about taking anything from the system we have, it's letting a cheaper, compliant rail compete so a merchant can pass a discount to customers at the register. And third, the biggest purchase most families will ever make, a home. Today, thousands of dollars vanish into the process of transferring a home. Closing costs of up to 5%, often more than $10,000, much of it just to establish who owns what and to move the money. Tokenization attacks that directly. It records ownership clearly, settles in seconds instead of weeks, and strips out the layers of middlemen who each take a cut. Independent analysts estimate that cut of tokenization can cut transaction costs by 35 to 65%. This is big in housing, but the same approach reaches car titles, equities, treasuries, small business invoices, and more. And it opens the door the other way too. Tokenization provides for fractional ownership, which lets a family own a piece of a wealth-building asset for as little as $1 instead of being locked out like they have for decades. Tokenization is real, it's growing, and the savings are already proven in the institutions using it today. This committee deserves real credit. The Genius Act is working, and finishing the job through the Clarity Act is the best chance Congress has had to set clear rules of the road. Clarity is closer than it's ever.
This guy sounds like just like a robot with no soul, just like all those other MAGA cult member politicians.
And I've urged the Senate to finish it this year. Clear US-based rules are what unlock tokenization for ordinary Americans, keeping this activity onshore and creating good-paying jobs. Because in the end, the cost of moving money and moving assets is real, and it shows up in every household budget. The Digital Chamber is proud of our role in helping Americans shed that burden and working with this committee. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Warren, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. All right, next witness will be Mr. Kevin Brown, the president of the National Association of Realtors. You are now recognized, and thank you all for your support of the housing bill as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Warren. Members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify in today's hearing on America's affordability agenda. My name is Kevin Brown. I'm the 2026 president of the National Association of Realtors, the largest trade association in the country with nearly 1.5 million members. I'm also a broker owner with Better Homes Realty, Rockridge, in Oakland, California. Every day, realtors work with families and individuals who have saved, worked hard, and maintained good credit, yet still cannot find an affordable home. The numbers are staggering. Housing remains one of the largest drivers of economic growth in the country, making up nearly a fifth of the U.S. economy. But the supply of homes to purchase has collapsed. The American population has grown nearly 30% since 1995, yet the existing housing stock has actually dropped more than 25% from 1.58 million units in 1995 to 1.18 million units today. The median annual home price has skyrocketed to over $400,000, and the average age of the first-time home buyer is now 40 years old. This is not sustainable. Thankfully, under the leadership of this committee, meaningful changes are on the way. The 21st.
Yeah, the MAGA cult morons probably couldn't afford to pay their internet bill.
Road to Housing Act is the most consequential housing legislation in decades. The bill strengthens many existing programs and streamlines others while cutting red tape and removing barriers to housing development. In particular, the bill
either that or they're over there lathering themselves up with that Diddy oil, listening to the YMCA song.
rural housing programs such as the Home Investment Partnership Program and the Community Development Block Grant Program to be more flexible and effective. The legislation modernizes financing for rural manufactured and modular housing and updates FHA multifamily loan limits to reflect today's market. It also streamlines federal environmental review and increases coordination across agencies. On the state and local side, it provides resources and incentives, not mandates, to help communities build and preserve homes. The Housing Supply Frameworks Act requires HUD to work with stakeholders to develop guidelines and best practices for addressing zoning policies that block housing production. The bill includes funding to develop pre-reviewed design libraries of ADUs, duplexes, townhouses that can help streamline permitting. It also creates planning grants to support affordable housing strategies at every level of government and a home renovation pilot to help families preserve the home that they already own. The House and Senate now agree. We look forward to this legislation being signed into law, adding to other successful reforms from Congress, such as opportunity zones and low-income housing tax credits. We know the 21st Century Road to Housing Act will have the same meaningful impact, but as we all know, there is more work to be done. We know it will take time to build more homes, but we also need to ensure that communities don't adopt short-sighted, quick fix things to address affordability. In my home state of California, we have seen policies that do more harm than good. While solutions like rent control may be popular, the on-the-ground results only water down personal property rights, discourage more development, and push mom-and-pop housing providers from the market. Property ownership works best when property rights are strong. That's what allows consumers to build and protect equity, the foundation of long-term wealth. While rent control may be seen as a way to protect tenants, in practice, it limits housing opportunities and makes them more expensive. This is why it's critical that the federal government take the lead in meaningful, lasting solutions. Realtors look forward to working with Congress on additional reforms and policies such as More Homes on the Market Act, a bipartisan bill that would double the capital gains exclusion threshold on a primary residence for the first time in nearly 30 years, while adjusting the caps to reflect future.
Look at these MAGA politicians over here. They want to make things even more expensive and take away rent control.
Just like people who are locked into their homes at lower interest rates, seniors are often locked in because of the home equity penalty. This legislation expands existing housing stock and gives seniors the opportunity to tap equity that they have counted on for retirement. In turn, move-up buyers can then buy homes, thus freeing up houses for first-time home buyers. Additional policy solutions are included in my written testimony. We know there is no silver bullet that will quickly fix the supply and affordability crisis, but the solutions this committee has championed will help the housing market for decades to come. Thank you, Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Warren. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, sir. Next we'll hear from Dr. Morgan, President of the Century Foundation. You are now recognized.
Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Warren, thank you for inviting me to testify before the committee today. As a public policy think tank dedicated to improving the lives of all Americans, the Century Foundation has been acutely focused on how rising costs are affecting working families. While President Trump is calling affordability a hoax or a fake word, and confessing that he does not think about Americans' financial situations, families are dealing every single day with the cost of living crisis that Donald Trump promised he would fix. From his first days in office, President Trump has gone back on his campaign promises, layering one price hike on top of another. Starting on so-called Liberation Day last April, the Trump administration set up a series of tariffs that have cost American consumers an average of about $1,700, increasing prices on a wide variety of must-have items, from groceries, clothing, and school supplies to building materials and electronics. The Trump administration and Republicans in Congress then pushed through massive tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans, paid for by increasing the cost of healthcare, higher education, energy, and food for ordinary families. While the wealthiest Americans got a boost, those tax cuts for the ultra-rich cost the lowest income families about $1,200 a year. In fact, any benefits that average families may have seen from Trump's tax plan were completely wiped out by a war with Iran that is keeping gas prices at nearly $4 per gallon and has cost families an estimated $100 billion to date. On the Trump administration's watch, some of the biggest expenses for ordinary families have become even less affordable. New car prices hit record highs, health insurance premiums have spiked, home prices rose again this last year, and rent and mortgage payments both remain alarmingly high. And prices are only one side of the equation on affordability. Wages are the other. Since returning to office, the president has directly cut the wages for home health workers and farm workers, wreaked havoc on the agencies responsible for ensuring that workers can exercise their rights, and in 2025 ushered in the worst year of job growth since 2020. The cumulative impact of these policies has been disastrous for working families. Our research shows that half of Americans report skimping on healthcare services or taking on debt to deal with their rising healthcare costs. Half have had to tap into savings to meet their day-to-day expenses. In one survey, 1 in 3 respondents reported that they had they or someone in their household has skipped meals to save money in the past year. Americans are increasingly forced to use debt to make ends meet, but high-cost loans are pushing families further over the edge. Outstanding credit card balances stand at around $1.25 trillion, with delinquency rates of more than 13%, the highest level since the Great Recession. Student loan delinquencies have also shot up under the Trump administration from nearly 0 to about 25%. Auto debt has exploded. Bankruptcy filings increased almost 12% between 2025 and 2026. Home foreclosure filings are up 26% from the last year and are the highest they've been since 2020. This mountain of debt adds a new dimension to the affordability crisis. Driving down the prices of individual goods and services won't fully alleviate the pain that families are feeling or the drop on the economy.
Hey, what's up, Ronald? What's up, everyone?
Gas prices next week don't mean all that much when you're still paying off your price at the pump from the last week or last month's groceries at a 24% interest rate. Not everyone is losing in the Trump economy, however. The Trump administration has engaged in a relentless, corrupt agenda of
What's up, Spider?
deregulation, corporate pardons, and sweetheart deals for the wealthy and the well-connected. Some of the beneficiaries are represented here in this room, like the banks that continue to derive excess profits from overdraft and credit card late fees that cost consumers $15 billion a year. This committee has the power to advance legislation that would help save Americans billions of dollars. I applaud you all for starting with housing, an area of critical need. And I saw this morning that Senator Warren and Senator Moreno are working to save Social Security as well. But with 110 million Americans unable to pay off their credit card balances each month and banks tucking massive profits into historically high interest rates, there is much more to be done. The affordability crisis is not a hoax. It's a backbreaking reality for the vast majority of Americans. This committee must take action to address it. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll now hear from Ms. Lindsay Johnson, the Community Bankers Association.
Thank you. Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Warren, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Lindsay Johnson. I'm President and CEO of Consumer Bankers Association, the nation's only trade association exclusively focused on retail lending. For as long as there's been an American economy, banks have helped families and small businesses build within it. That work often begins with something simple, safeguarding a paper.
This lady's a trip right here. She's able to talk with only moving her lips, but her teeth, her jaw stays closed the whole time as she talks. Trip out.
And it grows from there. Banks take deposits and put them to work in communities, helping consumers establish credit, finance an education, buy a car, purchase a home, or start or expand a small business. For millions and millions of Americans, a credit card or a small loan can take a family from credit invisibility to financial opportunity. The same is true for small businesses. Many begin with a founder's personal credit card, grow into a small business loan, mature into an enterprise that takes payments, manages cash flow, hires employees, and serves their communities. At every stage, banks are alongside them. But the true measure of a bank is not just what it does in good times. It's what it provides when life doesn't go according to plan. When a paycheck and a bill don't line up, when a car breaks down, or when hours are...
Hey, what's up, Brindle? Hey, thank you for the comment. I agree with you.
Bank products can be the bridge between a difficult month and a genuine crisis. A credit card, an overdraft service, a home equity line of credit can help a family absorb a shock, stay current, and keep moving forward. Banks also provide another layer of support for consumers that they may not see: fraud prevention, payment security, and technology that makes modern commerce possible. Banks do well when their consumers, small businesses, and their communities do well. Today's economy and consumers are remarkably resilient, but affordability is a real concern for many families as essentials like housing, healthcare, food, and transportation, what we refer to in our written testimony as the 4 horsemen of affordability.
Hey, what's up, WTF? Good to hear from you. That's crazy. Trump put some tariffs on some penguins. You guy's out of his mind.
Continue to pressure household budgets. As costs have risen, families, particularly those at the bottom of the K-shaped economy, feel it more acutely. Consider the median household making around $68,000 after taxes, or roughly $5,700 a month. Essentials like housing, vehicles, healthcare comprise around 2/3 of their budget. And if you add childcare in there, it consumes around 75% of the budget before utilities, gasoline, retirement savings, and other recurring costs. By year's end, this household has a net savings of around $540 or roughly $45 a month. It's an incredibly thin margin where a single unexpected expense can upend a family budget. And 75% of Americans experience at least one expense shock a year. On average, that expense shock is around $5,000. For consumers like this, low-cost financial products from Main Street banks can help manage and smooth out those unexpected expenses. Conversely, credit cards and other products and services that serve as shock absorbers comprise a very small amount of the consumer's budget, as credit card interest accounted for roughly 1% on average of the household budget in 2024, for example, and overdraft and other fees are even less. Congress, this committee, and the administration deserve credit for advancing solutions focused on core sources of affordability challenges, including pending bank capital rules that are going to enhance banks' abilities to lend, bipartisan work on housing expansion and supply, and support for small business lending. CBA also appreciates the focus on fraud and scams, a fast-growing threat costing Americans billions every single year. Combating it requires stronger coordination, accountability, law enforcement engagement, and more engagement across technology, telecom, and non-bank marketplaces. As policymakers consider additional solutions, it is so critical to preserve the financial tools that help families manage those unexpected expenses. Quick fixes like credit card rate caps may seem appealing, but they simply reduce access to credit, and they make it harder for consumers who need it most to access that credit, and instead pushes them to less regulated alternatives. A better approach, detailed in my written testimony, is to address affordability challenges at their source while maintaining responsible access to credit. Banks cannot solve structural affordability and income challenges alone, but we can and do help families manage through it, ensuring access to essential credit and liquidity in a competitive and sustainable way. The last 6 years have presented some of the most unprecedented challenges to the economy and consumers in modern history. Yet banks' role to support consumers and small businesses during this time led to much greater resiliency for families, for business, for...
Hey, what's up, USOAD? I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Trump just hires anyone. He hires like, reality TV show stars. So it doesn't surprise me that he probably hires a porn star for one of his cabinet positions.
For communities and the broader economy, as banks were the driving force in the fastest post-pandemic recovery in modern history. Banks will continue to serve as foundational partners in American life and will support stability and help families achieve their own American dream. Thank you again, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. Each member of the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions of any of the witnesses for up to 5 minutes, and then we'll move on. I'll start. One of the things I said during my opening comments was that because of the Working Families Tax Cut Bill, 97% of Americans saw their taxes go down, and the focus of those tax decreases were on people making less than $200,000 a year. 100% of Democrats voted against the tax cuts for 97% of Americans. $5 trillion is just a mind-numbing amount, but $250 a month is something I can understand. Giving Americans $250 additional dollars because of our Working Families Tax Cut Bill that showed up in tax returns, an increase on average of 11%, is just another way the Republican majority is working on behalf of the American people, making 2026 the year of affordability, working in the right direction. I'd also add to that, comparisons matter. The contrast between the Biden administration years, where the average family was losing more than $1,000 of purchasing power a month, and inflation got as high as 9%. And oh, by the way, don't forget, gas prices, June of 2022, $4.88 a gallon on average. On top of all that, one of the most oppressive regulatory environment.
How's this guy? This guy's pretty talented to be able to maintain a straight face while telling all these absurd lies. The gaslighting is crazy.
In modern history brought to us by the Biden administration. Digging out of that hole has taken time without any question. And when I think about the regulatory burden put on top of the average person in this country, I think about the regulatory options like Basel III, an initiative coming to the table that fortunately and thankfully we were able to dodge that really devastating bullet to the American people. Now, most people may not be as familiar, Lindsey Johnson, as you are with the Basel III provision. Let's talk about that for a few minutes, because my understanding is the more money you park on the sidelines, the fewer dollars you have for first-time home buyers, starting a small business, purchasing a car. And you add on top of that one regulatory option, another one through the CFPB, spying on businesses, looking for ways to bring more onerous pain into the lives of just working class small business folks trying to make their ends meet. That regulatory pressure on top of the economic uncertainty created an instability that I'm not sure that we fully appreciate or have absorbed completely. Thoughts, Ms. Johnson?
Well, I'll start with your the conversation around Basel and just capital proposals and regulatory burden generally. You know, your comment is right. We have to get that balance between safety and soundness and allowing a bank to be a bank and wanting a bank to compete with all the other non-banks in the atmosphere. More competition means more safe product options. And what we saw before under the Basel III proposal that was released in 2023 was something that outstripped even international standard. It would have made U.S. banks far less competitive, push banks outside of certain lending segments, and mortgage. You know, banks are already a much smaller portion of that market than they were before. The more we can get that competition in the marketplace, the lower costs will actually lower, because competition, that's what it's there for. So that's one example. And then I would say on the CFPB, look, the CFPB, we need a CFPB that's credible and durable and stable. We need a CFPB that does a true cost-benefit analysis, a rigorous cost-benefit analysis to understand how the rules that it's writing are actually going to impact consumers. And oftentimes, whether it was credit card late fee or overdraft, they simply overlooked it. Consumers were going to lose access to these products by their own admission on credit card late fees. 74% of people were going to see their costs go up. And that small portion of people who are frequent late payers would see some benefits, but they didn't take into account that their credit score was going to be hurt long term, driving their costs up. We've got to do a better job of having an honest conversation that's apolitical at these agencies so that we can really drive cost savings to consumers.
With my time that I have left, with just only about 30 seconds, because I'm the chairman, so I can't tell time. Mr. Brown, you said that you have more solutions in your written comments. In about 15 seconds, could you provide us with one solution you think would make housing more affordable that you haven't heard so far?
Sure. More Homes on the Market Act, which is also a bipartisan bill before Congress, provides for doubling of capital gains, the capital gains exemption from $250,000 and $500,000 for a married couple to $500,000 for a single person, $1 million for a married couple. That would free up. There are people on the sidelines right now just waiting because they either don't want to pay the tax or can't afford to pay the tax. And so that would free up inventory. You don't have to put any shovels in the ground. There would be instant inventory into the marketplace where buyers would come in, buy that property, which would free up some housing also for first-time home buyers. So thank you. And thank you for your work on that, by the way. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm really glad that we are holding a hearing about President Trump's affordability agenda, and I'm glad that my Republican colleagues.
All right, finally, a real politician, guys. Senator Warren. She's gonna throw down the gauntlet right here. Let's go, Senator Warren, a real patriot.
seem to agree with President Trump's claim last week that, quote, affordability is a fake word made up by Democrats. In fact, I want to ask our witnesses about that. So raise your hand if you agree with the president that affordability is a hoax made up by Democrats. I'm giving you time here. Okay, no hands up, and I assume that means none of you, Democrats or Republicans, agree with President Trump that the affordability crisis.
No, the only one that's stolen valor from Cherokee Nation is a clown named Mark Wayne Mullen.
American families is a hoax, and that seems right to me. You know, President Trump's agenda has driven up costs so that families are putting more of everything, from groceries to gas, on their credit cards. Trump's own top economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, recently bragged that, quote, credit card spending is through the roof. He's right. Over 100 million Americans have credit card debt now, many of them putting groceries and gas on their credit cards just to be able to make it to the end of the month. And delinquencies are at the highest level since the crash of 2008. So let's talk about affordability. In January, President Trump promised to cap credit card interest rates. He politely asked the biggest banks to put in place a 1-year 10% cap by January 20th. Now, Ms. Johnson, your organization represents some of the biggest banks in the country. We are more than 5 months past Trump's January 20th deadline. Which banks have implemented the 1-year 10% cap on credit card interest rates that President Trump promised to deliver?
So thank you for the question. There's a couple of things I'd love to say. One, banks offered 0% APRs today.
I'm sorry, I had a specific question. Donald Trump told the banks that they should lower their credit card interest rates to 10% by January 20th. He said that's what he would deliver for the American people, promised it to everyone in America. And I just want, which banks have actually lowered their credit card interest rates to 10%? Can you give me their names?
There are definitely options that are low cost APR.
I'm sorry, which banks have lowered their credit card interest rate to 10%? Are there any that are at 10%? Can you name one?
I can tell you that there are options today.
Can you
They
name
don't have a
one
cap,
bank
8%
that has lowered its credit card interest rate as President Trump
and no bank wants to cut off
asked?
credit to
Has there been
people
one?
with below 800.
Has there been one?
Man, not a single one of these, all these hearings I've been watching, every single one of these MAGA cult member politicians, they can never answer the simple questions. I have a proposition. So from now on, what they should do, they should put like a trap door underneath their seat. So whenever they don't want to answer the question, you know, the trap door just opens and they disappear underground.
Including advocates.
Has there been one? One?
There are options in the marketplace for sure. But
So not a single one has followed through on what President Trump told them to do. So President Trump and big banks, they don't provide the 10% cap on credit cards. Ms. Johnson, how much more have Americans paid in interest on credit cards than they would have paid if the cap the president promised had taken effect? What's the number?
so again, I want to go back to
What's the
rate card.
number?
The rate. So we have not done that calculation.
I'll bet you haven't done that calculation, but here's the thing I have. It's $57 billion in credit card interest rate above 10% that Americans have paid since January 20th. By the way, if you just do the math, that's $368 million a day. Now, President Trump promised he was going to make banks lower credit card interest rates for families by January 20th. And so far, families have been paying $368 million a day for Donald Trump's broken promise. Now, we know that families have less money to spend and are falling behind on their bills thanks to Donald Trump's economic policies. Dr. Morgan, if you can tell me very briefly, how are people coping with these tighter finances?
I mean, families are really struggling. As I said earlier, 1 in 3 are skipping meals. They're skipping medications that are prescribed by their doctors. They're skimping on healthcare services, and they're turning to debt. I think it's important to know that's a both and, right? We're seeing people both cut back on the things that they need to live their lives and also put their expenses onto high cost debt, both credit cards, buy now, pay later, paycheck advance loans.
Thank you. President Trump may love inflation, but it's killing American families. Congress needs to work together to fix the president's failed economic agenda and to make life more affordable for all Americans. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, cool. My weed delivery just arrived. I'll be right back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I really appreciate the fact that the chairman and the ranking member have come together to have this discussion on where the costs are right now for American consumers. And I think it's really important that we talk about all the impacts. I noted that there's always a desire to have your cake and eat it too. Sometimes that's not possible, particularly when we talk about how we go about financing activities in our daily lives. I'm just curious, Ms. Johnson, you represent a lot of banks that issue a lot of credit. How many people today have credit cards in America?
A couple hundred, actually almost 282 million people have credit cards. I will say,
282 million people have credit cards today. Can you imagine not having credit and being able to survive in today's digital economy? I'm just curious. Can you? I mean, we use them to get on.
Even the medicine, the marijuana. I don't know what I did. All right. Damn, what the hell did I do? All right, cool. So yeah, even the marijuana medicine went up. Can you guys hear me? Let me see. I don't even know what the fuck. Yeah, even. All right. So check it out. So this used to be $30 when Biden was president. Now with Trump's high gas prices, now it's $50.
But we also use them to literally do digital shopping, anything over the internet at all. Telephones we pay for with a credit card in most cases. Just thinking back about this thing here, one of the greatest threats to a lot of people being able to survive on a day-to-day basis is if they couldn't get credit. What would happen? I'm just curious. I think the president really wanted to find a way to try to suggest that he wanted the marketing side of things to be able to be incentivizing.
Yeah, if I go to the dispensary, it's cheap. But the dispensary that I've been going to for years, they got shut down. So I haven't found a new one yet. So I've just been ordering delivery from Weed Maps. But yeah, they charge more because Donald Trump's illegal war, because gas prices went up.
Offer people low interest rates, but a lot of credit card companies offer 0% interest rates for short periods of time. Can you talk a little bit about what would happen if, and I presume you've done the work on it because you represent the banks that really issue these cards. What would happen? What would be the impact if government were to step in and artificially say you have to have an interest rate of 10% less on credit cards? What would happen to the number of people that would have availability of credit cards today?
so it's such an important question, and it's the right question, because ultimately it's the best way to make sure that someone only with an 800 credit score has access to credit.
You said what?
Only people with an 800 credit score would have access to credit.
So how many?
Hey, what's up? What's up, Steve-O? Doing well. How you doing? Just hanging out, watching these. There's some Senate hearings that happened today, so just watching them with YouTubeville, having a little YouTubeville watch party, so we can all interact and discuss whatever's on our minds. So appreciate anyone that's sharing your opinions. About to smoke a fat bong load, yo. And then I got a double cheeseburger waiting. So once I smoke, I'm gonna eat this double cheeseburger.
Don't have an 800 credit score today out of those hundreds of millions of people that have credit cards.
It will restrict credit for around 75 to 80% of the current market.
75 to 80%
that would be around
I'm sorry, but
50 million.
75 to 80% of the current credit card holders.
Yes.
And how would that happen? What would they simply lose them on day one, or what would happen?
It would be fairly quick. It would be fairly immediate because ultimately risk-based pricing allows issuers, and there's 4,000 plus issuers that compete for consumers' business every single day, to go out there and make sure that consumers have access to this necessary liquidity and source of credit in a very sustainable way. You can't do that for free. And part of this is making sure that we have plenty of options. And you mentioned the 0% balance transfers. There were 60 billion in balance transfers last year in 2024 alone. We are focused on making sure that consumers understand those different options. But to simply take away a source of credit for consumers seems incredibly punitive.
You know, in the 1980s, we had a tough time on the ag markets in South Dakota. We had usury rates in place, and because we had usury rates in place, there were banks that simply wouldn't loan to farmers anymore because, well, it was been a tough time. A lot of the guys were struggling, and yet, in order to put seed in the ground in the spring of that year, Bill Jankel was governor at the time, and he looked at it and he says, "Look."
Hey, what's up, Edward Thornton? How you doing? What's up, Amanda? Steve-O, what's happening? What's up, Sharon? What's up, John? What's up, Paint Code? Jacob? Appreciate everyone that's here hanging out, sharing your opinions. Please hit the like button. Thank you.
It's cost a little more interest rates. We've got to get these guys some credit so they can actually put their crop in the ground. It's the reason why South Dakota at that time eliminated their usury rate. In doing so, banks charged more than what the traditional usury rate was. But we had farmers that survived because they could actually borrow the money. My concern with this whole discussion is that you say we've got over 4,000 different banks that issue credit cards today. I'm just wondering, it seems to me that these folks that have got these great ideas about issuing 10% credit rates, out of the 4,000, I'm sure one or two of them could do that today. But I'm just curious why we don't have some new startups by these folks that have got these great ideas. And they could issue 10%. In fact, they could go to 8%, and they could get a lot of people coming in. I wonder how long they would actually be able to continue to offer that rate based just upon the individuals that might not be able to qualify for a regular card, but would love to have that interest rate. Is there a reason why we don't have a lot of people offering that 10% interest rate today?
It's just simply not sustainable. The worst thing we can do for a consumer is to extend them a product that they cannot afford to pay back. One of the things, and I do want to just push back on a couple of the different comments about the overall balances, if I've got a second, because
10 seconds.
Could you loan me 30 seconds?
I loaned myself 30, so
Thank you.
let's do that.
one of the most important things to understand is that through the pandemic, over the last 6 years, really 8 years, 40 million new people came into this market. So when we talk about balances being $1.2 trillion, that's because we've got a lot more people who have access to this very important source of liquidity. You did have higher prices, so balances also went up. That is what drove APRs. APRs are not a bank profit. APRs are how we extend credit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding.
All right. We got another real politician up to bat right now, guys. Senator Van Hollen, let's go.
And I think it's indisputable that families all over the country are seeing prices and costs go up. In President Trump's first year, families paid $310 more for groceries than they did in 2024. They paid $110 more in electric bills than the year before. Now, I think we all recognize that the economy is complex and price increases cannot always be attributed to the policies of the president or administration. In this case, it's pretty clear they can be. Because of the president's tariffs, families have paid $1,700 more in tariff costs. Gas prices are up 40% thanks to President Trump's catastrophic war in Iran. And so as of last month, inflation now stands at 4.2% annualized rate, which is the fastest growth in 3 years. Now, we have heard President Trump say recently that he, quote, loves inflation. He's also said that that affordability is a fake word made up by Democrats. So, Dr. Morgan, just to sort of level set on facts, is the affordability crisis a hoax made up by Democrats, or are people experiencing price increases because of the Trump?
I got to rewind that a little bit. Van Hollen spitting the facts.
40% thanks to President Trump's catastrophic war in Iran. And so as of last month, inflation now stands at 4.2% annualized rate, which is the fastest growth in 3 years.
Hey, what up? What up, Brett? Hey, good to see you. How you been, Brett?
Now, we have heard President Trump say recently that he, quote, loves inflation. He's also said that that affordability is a fake word made up by Democrats. So, Dr. Morgan, just to sort of level set on facts, is the affordability crisis a hoax made up by Democrats, or are people experiencing price increases because of the Trump administration policies?
It is not a hoax. This is something that families are dealing with every single day.
And so I want to talk briefly about the other side of the affordability equation, right? On the one hand, we all face costs and prices. On the other hand, our ability to afford them depends on the income we've got, what money we have in our pockets or bank accounts. And so I do think it's worth taking another look at what was President Trump's signature legislative policy accomplishment. He would call it an accomplishment. I think it was really bad for the country. And that was what they called their Big Beautiful Bill, which provided huge tax cuts to the very wealthy at the expense of everybody else. Dr. Morgan, it's correct to say that the wealthiest taxpayers benefited the most from that so-called Big Beautiful Bill, right?
That's correct. The wealthiest taxpayer benefited the most, and the bill actually cost the lowest income families money because of the cuts to Medicaid and SNAP and other programs.
Right. And just to emphasize the point, I think we should look at this chart that shows that the richest 1% of income earners got 22% of the benefit of those tax cuts. And overall, the top 20% income earners got 72%. I will also say this distorts the picture over time because some of the tax cuts that went to sort of middle class families included things like the no tax on tips, which actually I think is a good idea. Although I think if you're in that income level and your income's not just in the form of tips, you should also get a break. But those were all sunset, right? Those tax cuts for working people are going to sunset in a couple of years, right?
That's right.
And so this will get even worse in terms of the distributional impact. In fact, so bad is the situation that the White House tried to reframe and sort of label its bill, the Working Americans Tax Cut Act. I mention that because I have introduced a piece of legislation called the Working Americans Tax Cut Act that gives 100% of the tax cut benefits to people who are not in the top 20% compared to the Trump Republican plan that gives 72% of the benefits to people who are in the top 20%. Let me just turn with my remaining time to overdraft fees because families paid more than $12 billion in overdraft fees last year. They can often be small. I mean, you can go and get a cup of coffee and not realize that your $3 cup of coffee ended up getting you a $35 overdraft fee. And banks love these. I mean, the rates can be as high as 16% effective annual interest. In fact, they did so well that there was one sort of middle bank executive whose bank raked so much in on overdraft fees that they named their boat overdraft. Now, In 2024, CPB tried to work to rein these costs in, but when the Trump administration came in, they lifted it. And the impact has been, as I say, $12 billion in overdraft fees. Isn't it true, Dr. Morgan, that overturning these rules hurt consumers and help boost bank profits?
Absolutely. You know, the cost to Americans for dialing back this rule is about $5 billion. And, you know, I think it's really important to put this in the context of what we're hearing from the representatives of the banks here today. You know, the banks will kind of frame overdraft fees as something that's necessary to provide a service, but overdraft actually used to be a courtesy to bank customers, and it's turned into a profit center for the banks. So we see the banks and their lobbyists fighting really hard to keep these fees in place in order to maintain those profits at the expense of consumers. And then we see the Trump CFPB really shifting from an organization that represented consumers to an organization that represents industry interests.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Johnson, have you looked at the what I consider to be largely failed attempts to cap credit card rates in other jurisdictions?
We certainly have. I
Give
mean,
me an
there's-
idea of how the movie ended.
Yeah, look, it never works. We have a ton of data. We've got a ton of history to learn from. Illinois is a great example.
I was about to ask you about Illinois. Give me what I've seen in the Illinois example. At least one, I believe, Senator Marshall's the other co-sponsor of the amendment on credit cards. So this is not just a Democrat-Republican thing. We have an honest disagreement among Republicans. Go through a few of the things that happened when Illinois did the arbitrary rate cap.
Look, they even had a 36% all-in rate cap. And what ultimately happened was nearly 40% of subprime borrowers simply lost access.
44%. Let's see, loans to subprime borrowers decreased by 44%. Loans to deep subprime borrowers decreased by 57%. 40%, let's see, financial well-being sentiment dropped by 40%. 11% reported an improvement. So it doesn't look like it's something that you would consider to be a best practice, does it?
No,
Has
absolutely.
this been implemented in any international jurisdictions or other countries that you've studied?
Look, there's
How are the results there?
again,
Remarkably similar, right?
terrible.
It's like, my God, you know
Time and
how
time
this
again, it
movie's
just
gonna
doesn't
end.
work. It
I
works
don't
exactly-
care which release it is, whether it's Toy Story 1 or Toy Story 5. You know, it's, my God, it's not going to end any differently. I don't even know why we're having this discussion. The whole concept of not being able to rate for risk.
Yes.
Anything.
Pricing is so important.
I mean,
to
you're
really
helping people from themselves. I get that it used to be an overdraft fee, used to be a courtesy. And you know what? The last time I checked, a lot of the banks still give you one or two passes. But when it becomes a chronic problem, at what point are you expected to actually know how much is in your bank account before you write a check? That's what this is. It's nothing more than that. It's financial literacy. I'll put money into financial literacy. I'll put money into real-time, don't write this check because you're about to get money and you've gone over the customary limit that banks will actually write off. Everybody's talking about like banks get you, it's a profit center. I don't know of any bank that doesn't give you a forbearance on the first 2, 3, 4, 5 overdraft fees. But folks, at what point do you actually have to own responsibility for a bank account? I mean, to me, it's that simple, but maybe I just don't get it. We talk about affordability as if it's something new. And that's bogus too. Affordability is always a problem, folks. It's just a matter of where it is on the margins. I've said this repeatedly in this committee. I know when I had an affordability problem, it's when we weren't living in a house anymore. We were living in a trailer. And I saw the overreach of regulatory and environment, and the Carter administration put me back in a trailer park because they were well-intentioned but poorly implemented policies. Every time we try to artificially gloss over some of the problems that we have here with finance.
Hey, Senator Tillis, I got some news for you, pal. Your orange daddy turned the White House into a trailer park, buddy.
Making sure that people really understand to spend within their means. Government tries to help me out, and I'll be damned if it's not the times it sends me back into that trailer park. when we start paying attention to the people who are really on the bubble, and I'll tell you right now, we got a real problem because we got some rich people making a lot of money, but we've got some people on the bubble that are hurting. And instead of talking around all this stuff and coming up with all these artificial constructs that have been empirically proven to fail, point to one. And in fact, I've got a minute left. If somebody's got an example of one of these arbitrary rate caps that have worked, I will yield my time and you can explain it to me right now. I got 45 seconds left. I want somebody who has expertise in this field to explain it to me right now. So, when did it succeed? I've got a list of facts. All I've asked was a simple question. Point to the one time in the whole history of the world and credit cards globally where it's worked once.
I got it. And that is when giant corporations.
No, you didn't answer my question.
No, I'm not.
All I asked was, I'm sorry, I'll reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman. I just want one. I'll go for a second round if somebody needs more time. One example of where this precise policy worked. It's going to be a short discussion. Matter of fact, I've got 5 seconds left now, and there's still no one here that's going to be offered up one successful example. My time has expired, Mr. Chair.
That shit's hilarious. Another MAGA stooge over there can't handle the truth. He didn't even let Senator Warren speak.
Mr. Chair.
I just can't bear.
Ranking member.
President.
Let's abide by the rules.
Mr. Chair.
Rules by the chair.
Mr. Chair, I've got
Senator Smith, if you are willing, I will give the ranking member 30 seconds, and I'll give you a 30-second rebuttal, and then we'll go to you. I'm happy to hear this.
Well, if that would be,
Example. I want to hear the example.
I was going to defer to the ranking member to answer this question, and then I would love to have my 5 minutes to talk about affordability in small towns.
We are being civil, by the way. This is great. Public discourse, a public discussion where there's strong disagreement is actually good for the public to hear.
It's not a partisan thing.
Go home, Tillis.
Okay.
So I just wanted to remind my colleague that back during the COVID crisis, the financial institutions all were given free access to overdraft their accounts at the Fed. It saved them literally billions of dollars because they could get free access to money when they didn't have money in their accounts. And the government politely asked them to extend the same courtesy to their own customers, which they refused to do, and they raked in billions more in profits. So it worked for the big boys, it just didn't work for the little guys.
So it's never worked before, but I look forward to somebody presenting the first successful implementation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Senator Smith, it's your time, but Senator Smith, it's still your time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member. And I'm going to shift this conversation to, I want to understand and have a bit of a conversation about how the so-called affordability agenda is working in small towns and rural places. And Dr. Morgan, I have a question for you. You know, I come from Minnesota. This is a place where food and agriculture are economic drivers in my state. And farmers are telling me that things are tough, that in fact it is so much harder to afford to run their businesses than it was just a couple of years ago. Farm Bureau says that farm bankruptcies were up nearly 50% last year, and Minnesota has the most farm bankruptcies of any place in the country in the first quarter of 2026. So what's driving this? I mean, first, fertilizer prices, diesel prices, input costs for farmers they're the highest that they've been in years. And then, of course, the chaotic tariff policy has made it very, very difficult for Minnesota producers to find access to markets that were their markets even just a year or so ago. So it's pretty clear to farmers in Minnesota that this is a bad situation for them. I'm wondering, could you talk to us a little bit about how this affordability agenda looks like for farmers in this country?
Yes, absolutely. So you hit on many of the main points here. Fertilizer prices spiked after the Trump tariffs went into effect. And in fact, the Trump administration had to actually exempt a number of fertilizers from those tariffs. And then they jumped again with the war with Iran. So, we're seeing both fertilizer prices up high. As you mentioned, diesel prices are up. Electricity prices are up as well. And all of these are squeezing small farmers who are just trying to stay afloat and who often
Watch Trump try to start selling us fertilizer from his diaper pretty soon here. He's going to be like, it's the best fertilizer ever.
and margins. I think it's really important to point out that for people living in rural communities, that's kind of just the tip of the iceberg, right? So in addition to what they're dealing with in their small businesses, we found that school districts across the country are really struggling with many of the same affordability challenges that individual families are struggling with, including higher electricity prices, higher gas prices, especially in rural areas where busing is a really big component of the school system's budget. And then the cuts that the Trump administration and congressional Republicans have made on healthcare.
Right. I'm really glad you raised this because this is a huge issue. Talk about you think about the economic impact of rural hospitals as just one example on the economic vitality of small towns, not to mention the importance of having access to healthcare in small towns and rural communities. And so, talk a bit about that and what those impacts are on rural communities in terms of their ability to afford stuff and get access to the stuff that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing kind of a double whammy here from the impact of tariffs, which have also had an impact on healthcare pricing for the services that hospitals offer, as well as the impact of the cuts to Medicaid, the failure to extend the ACA tax credits. And so, rural hospitals are the ones that are being hit the hardest. And what we're seeing is that they're pulling back on services. So people are having to drive farther and farther to get access to really basic services like emergency services or maternity health. So it's turning into a really big crisis. It's the kind of situation where people can really feel the affordability crisis every time they try to get a doctor's appointment or seek emergency services.
And so I want to just take a minute also to talk about the impact on food. So first, you've got the question of what is the residual impact on global food prices with the lack of access to fertilizer that's happened because of the Iran war and what that means about food prices going up potentially as we get into the second half of this year. And that'll, of course, have an impact on all communities, not just rural communities. Could you address that?
Yes, the price of food has gone up pretty much across the board. The Century Foundation and the Groundwork Collaborative have put out a number of reports tracking the cost of foods. We typically tie them to holidays. So you see the cost of hams going up, the cost of hamburgers going up around Memorial Day, Halloween candy. So you have this kind of rising price that we're seeing people, and I know the CBA alluded to this, putting onto their credit cards. But we've also had this enormous dialing back of SNAP benefits. Right. So 4 million people have lost access to SNAP benefits and are, really struggling to find food, which is where we see these findings that about 1 in 3 people are actually skipping meals in order to try to endure this affordability crisis.
And if you add on to that the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill included this big cost shift onto counties, many of them red counties, who are now having to pay for more of those SNAP benefits that they did in the past. And that's putting a huge pressure point on county budgets and is forcing counties to think about additional cuts to SNAP, which is also going to make it that much harder to afford your life in small towns and rural communities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Senator Kennedy.
Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. All right, guys. This clown right here. Senator Kennedy. This guy is so incompetent, it's actually hilarious. I always get a good laugh when I listen to this guy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to say, I'm a little disappointed. You all seem like fine people. And here's... And Mr. Carbone, you seem to be here to promote cryptocurrency. I love cryptocurrency, but I don't think that's the problem with our economy. Mr. Brown, you're here to promote realtors. I love realtors, but that's not going to solve our economic problems. Ms. Johnson's here to promote banks. I love banks. Dr. Morgan is here to bash Trump without telling us that she formerly was part of the Biden administration and worked for Mr. Shopra, the CFPB, and that your policies caused inflation to go to 9%. I think those would have been relevant things to tell us. I guess you thought we were going to look up your background. Can we agree that the problem of affordability is the prices are too high? Duh. Does anybody disagree with that? And prices are too high because of inflation. Does anybody disagree with that? And inflation, despite Dr. Morgan's political beliefs, is not just a Trump problem, it was a Biden problem, was it not? Okay, so here's my question to you. Let's start with you, Ms. Johnson. How do you get prices down? That's what we're here for. How do you get prices down?
Well, we think a lot of the things that you all are doing, focusing the committee on the sources.
Tell me how to get prices down.
You increase supply and you make sure you cut the red tape.
You increase supply, okay? Some people want to talk about deflation. If you believe in deflation, as we see in the world today, you need to change your meds. China's got deflation. How's it going for them? They've got about a 20% unemployment rate for their young people. The only way out of the inflation is to grow our way out of it. Am I wrong? You're going to have to increase our economic growth, not at the top line, but so people feel it. You're going to have to increase wages. And to do that, do you disagree with Mr. Brown? We're going to have to grow the pie. Right or wrong?
Well,
I don't know who's worse, this guy or Lindsey Graham. They're both a bunch of silly goofballs.
first of all, I'm here to support home ownership. In supporting home ownership.
No disrespect, but whatever. I'm sorry if I offended you. How do you think we can get out of these high prices? Otherwise, I mean, you can try to go, promote deflation, get ready for 10% unemployment. Okay, then Dr. Morgan's really
all right, Brett. Hey, have a good night. Good to see you.
bashing us. Okay, tell me how we grow our way out of it. I don't see any other way to deal with inflation.
I think,
but to grow people's wages.
I think that we increase inventory. We reduce zoning restrictions. We do a lot of the same things that are
And how are you going to increase inventory?
By
who owns the inventory? Businesses. You're going to have to stimulate the economy and help businesses to grow, aren't you?
Well, I come from California, which is ground zero for the lack of housing affordability, and it's a little more complicated than that.
I don't think you want to answer my question. Ms. Johnson, aren't we going to have to grow the economy and therefore increase wages in order to help people deal with the inflation? If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, the only thing this Kennedy guy knows is how to shave Orange Man's butt cheeks.
Way, tell me.
I think growth has been a key driver. Consumer spending continues to be strong. It's what's driven us through one of the most tumultuous times that we've been through, including bringing historic high inflation. We also do need to address prices, and I think the Fed's focused on it. Price stability has got to be key.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we basically we're free enterprise in America. We're basically, to grow the economy, you've got to stimulate businesses and try to direct labor to share in the growth. Is that right? Okay, Dr. Morgan, are you a Democratic Socialist like your colleagues?
No,
You're not. Do you? I noticed that y'all's new policy is to create a 4-day, 32-hour work week with no loss in pay. Where are we gonna get the money to do that?
that's not my policy.
You don't think we ought to do that?
I'm sorry.
You think we ought to have a federal jobs guarantee?
I think a federal jobs guarantee is a good idea, yes.
No, you do. Okay, how do you think we're gonna pay for that? Fair? You believe in the Easter Bunny, do you?
I think it's incredibly hard to pay for these things when we're giving tax cuts to the ultra rich.
Yeah.
What the hell? These MAGA politicians are lost with reality. You just asked her if she believes in the Easter Bunny. What the hell?
Okay. You think that all the growth in our economy just goes to the ultra rich?
I think that we just gave massive tax cuts to the wealthiest in this country, yes.
Yeah. You are a democratic socialist, aren't you?
I have never used that term to refer to myself.
No. You have a Nazi tattoo?
Excuse me?
Do you have a Nazi tattoo?
I don't have any.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. We have Senator Cortez.
Okay, Kennedy was like going off the rails right there. I think that guy's drinking too much Kool-Aid.
Thank you. Let me put this back on track. So much for attending today. I can tell you how we grow the economy, and we're a perfect example. We got culinary members here in the audience. Culinary are part of our service industry. Nevada industry is our tourism trade industry, which, by the way, posts nearly a $14 trillion in revenue in this country. But because of the bad policies of this administration, we are not growing that economy. In fact, there's a $14 billion trade deficit in 2025. Why? Because this administration.
That's hilarious, Steve-O. A Nazi tramp stamp.
Cut Medicaid, they have chaotic tariffs, a war of choice in Iran, the barriers put in place of so many that want to travel to the United States, the bad policies, the high costs that leaves less discretionary funds for families to travel. That is part of the problem. So if we can eliminate some of the policies of this administration, that will help grow the economy. And I will tell you, I believe with the culinary, one job should be enough in this country. One job should be enough. And you should be able to afford to put groceries on your table, to pay your energy costs, put a roof over your head, and so much more, and afford healthcare in this country. That's what it's about. And so I appreciate all of you being here because that's a conversation we have. And one of the pieces of the puzzle here is housing and a roof over your head. And I was so pleased to see in a bipartisan way that we passed the road to housing here, the 21st century road to housing. I thank the chairman, I thank the ranking member, everybody here that worked on that in a bipartisan, bicameral way. But now we have to fund it. We have to remember there's programs in there that need to be funded. One of them is the home program that I was very pleased to be able to actually put the legislation in to modernize the home program. So, Mr. Brown, let me ask you this question. Why is the home program so important for building more affordable homes and increasing that supply? Actually, I don't know if you have your speaker on.
We do support the home program. Which section is that, Senator?
That is the road to 21st century housing. That's the home program. Yeah, that's the one that actually finances federal dollars that come into states for the home program to help finance supply. If you're not familiar with it, happy to have one of the other panelists.
No, I think it's very important. I think that overall, this bill is extremely important to increasing affordability in the housing market because you're cutting red tape, you are cutting regulatory burdens, and you're increasing inventory. And I think that's the way that we're going to be able to tackle the affordability crisis. And I think that this bill goes a long way. It's a great start. I mean, more work can be done, but there's some really good things in this bill that are really going to help the housing affordability crisis in America.
And that's the key, right? It's one thing to pass it. Now we have to authorize the appropriations for these programs.
Yes.
The home program is a grant program through HUD that brings those essential dollars, federal dollars, into our communities to build housing. And I think
affordable housing.
Hey, Brendan, I had to put you in timeout because you said a derogatory word. So feel free to come back in 5 minutes. I mean, we got free speech over here, but can't be saying that word.
It's important that
extremely
we
important.
reauthorize it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me talk to Dr. Morgan. I have been concerned with what I'm happening with the CFPB. As the former Attorney General of Nevada, I work closely with CFPB to protect consumers. And now this administration has systematically eliminated the CFPB. And I'm concerned now with what that means for consumers in general and Americans. Nearly 22 million families pay more than half their income to keep a roof over their head, yet the president's proposal to cut funding for affordable housing programs like home and gut the CFPB Bureau doesn't help families who have seen rents rise 50% since 2020. How does the president's decision to cut and gut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau enable landlords to still charge junk fees to renters? Is that still happening in this country?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, the gutting of the CFPB has taken the cops off the beat. So there's really no one kind of minding the store for consumers and making sure that financial institutions are following the law. It gives a green light to predatory companies to break the law as they see fit. And, when it comes to renters in particular, the CFPB had really been watching this kind of like proliferation of products that were being put into the market in order to bridge the gap between rent and what people could actually afford. Rental credit cards, different kinds of, innovative payment processing platforms, security deposit replacement products that turned out to be a loan or kind of another kind of shady product. And so not having the CFPB in place to actually crack down on those practices is really important. The other role that the CFPB plays is on the research and market side. They were the organization that was keeping an eye on what was happening with family finances, keeping an eye on household financial stability, raising the alarm when household financial stability became a larger problem that threatens the economy overall. And they're not doing that either. So there are a lot of threats here for renters and homeowners alike.
Thank you. I know my time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. And on behalf of the chairman, Senator Ricketts.
I'd like to thank the chair and ranking member for holding the hearing here today, talking about affordability. Now,
who the hell is this guy? Is this Stephen Miller? Is this Tamu Stephen Miller?
For the topic, I typically bring up in environment and public works. But since we're talking about affordability, I'm not going to miss the opportunity here. And that's about biofuels. I know Senator Rouse knows all about this. Biofuels are a win-win-win. They save consumers money at the pump. It actually helps clean up the environment, and it's great for our farmers and ranchers. In fact, last weekend I filled up at my local Hy-Vee and saved 55 cents a gallon on E10, which is a 10% blend of ethanol, compared to the regular 87 octane gasoline. If we pass E15, that would allow for even more savings for Americans, put more money back in Americans' pockets. I was glad to see the House pass my Congressman Adrian Smith's E15 bill. So I want to work with Senator Fisher on getting that passed.
Hey guys. Hey, I just found the only thing that's gone down during Trump's economy. Here, it's right here. So here's the only thing that's gone down during Trump's economy, guys. There you have it. Shit, if I was a senator, I would pull up with a portrait of that. Well, this is Donald Trump feeding his cult members.
Side, so I'll put my little plug in for that. But one of the other things we're talking about is the Road to 21st Century Housing Bill that we passed and why that was so important. You know, one of the things that we saw was that home ownership 10 years ago, the first time home buyer was 31 years old and today's 40. And addressing this, it's not a new problem. When I was governor of Nebraska, we had the same sort of issues with regard to enough housing stock. I think, Mr. Brown, that's one of the things that you referenced is we got to have more houses. You have more houses, you bring the cost down. So that's one of the things we can do. And so one of the things we did when I was governor was create the Rural Workforce Housing Fund to be able to create this fund that would work with communities and developers to create more housing stock. And that is the goal of what we're doing here with the 21st Century Housing Bill, is to try to find more ways to create more housing stock. So working with Chairman Scott and the rest of the banking colleagues here, we're working on making housing more affordable for Nebraskans. The House passed its bill. We voted on ours. I've put a number of common sense 21st Century Road to Housing Act bills into this so we can build more homes. It includes priorities to be able to help break ground quicker. One estimate regulations, for example, account for about 25% of the cost of a single family home for an apartment building. It's actually 40%. It's even more. This is burdensome and duplicative regulations that add to the cost of homes, but also extend out project timelines. The longer it takes to build a house, the less available those units are going to be as well. In Nebraska, housing projects often draw both HUD and USDA money for a portion of their funding, and those processes, both those agencies have their own processes for reviewing and inspection, and they can also be very overlapping and create confusion, bureaucracy. So one of the things that I put in the 21st Century Road to Housing Act was the Streamlined Rural Housing Act, which will require HUD and USDA to work together so they can, instead of doing duplicative processes and serial, try to put them in parallel to be able to make that more efficient. The bill also directs the agencies to work together on cutting other red tape. Eliminating those delays will help get that money out faster, which means then that money will go to building homes faster. So that's an important part of what we're trying to do here. Another issue is breaking ground on a project for NEPA reviews on land that's already gone a past review. For example, sometimes the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, requires review for power or water lines in development areas that have already had them. These are known as infill sites. The Rural Housing Regulatory Relief Act that I introduced would streamline NEPA reviews for projects that pull funding from USDA and are located on infill sites. Again, eliminating this duplicative and unnecessary regulations is common sense, will help speed up housing construction. So, Mr. Brown, I've talked about a couple of these. What kind of impacts do these kinds of reforms have on project costs, timelines, and completion?
So you just hit the top three: zoning, regulatory, and environmental. Those are the things that really delay projects that add to the cost. Your estimates are spot on, adding about 25 to 26% of regulatory costs before you even break ground, which is really a huge barrier for a developer or a builder in the marketplace. 40% for multifamily before they even break ground. So this bill does a tremendous job at cutting some of that red tape. And I think it's going to be a great step in terms of producing more housing inventory, multifamily and single family dwellings in this country.
So by cutting some of this red tape, then we'll be able to reduce the timelines. Is that accurate?
Yes, reduce the timelines, streamline the process, which means it's going to be less expensive to build.
Great. Well, these are the kind of common sense reforms that we want to put in the package to be able to help make sure this got done, which is exactly the point. So thank you very much, Mr. Brown, and to all of our witnesses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, sir. Senator Reverend Dr. Brother Warnock.
Well, thank you so much. Your introduction was prescient.
All right. We got Warnock in the house. Senator Warnock holding down the fort over here. But yeah, whenever you hear any of these MAGA meat-riding politicians saying common sense, just know that translates to more money in their pockets and screwing over the American people.
Brother Chair, according to a recent Fox News poll, more than half of all voters feel that President Trump's economy only helps rich people, with an additional 15% saying his economy helps, quote, no one. And that same Fox News poll found that 3 out of 5 voters feel pessimistic about the economy. Doesn't matter much what those of us on this panel feel, what the American people feel. Consumer sentiment is near record lows. Ordinary Americans know Donald Trump's economy isn't working for them. Dr. Morgan, you're an expert on the economy. I don't know your faith tradition or if you share a particular faith tradition at all, but I'm a Matthew 25 Christian, meaning I like to center my work on the least among us, the poor, the most marginalized. Isaiah, whom I've been reading a lot lately, says, who are you to crush my people, to grind the face of the poor? So I want to dig into that verse from Matthew 25 to assess the Trump economy. It says, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Bug 101?
Dr. Morgan, how have the president's policies been for hungry Americans?
Senator Warnock, the president's policies have pushed more and more Americans into hunger. We've seen actually 4 million people lose their SNAP benefits under this administration, as about 700,000 of them were children. And the Century Foundation's own polling shows that 1 in 3 Americans have skipped meals in order to deal with their cost of living crisis.
So you said 4 million Americans. Mm-hmm. And you said 700,000 of the Americans kicked off of SNAP are children.
That's right.
Because I met with the speaker and others, and they say that these are able-bodied men who are kicked off of SNAP. But you're saying these cuts are leaving children food insecure.
Right. That's
Let's try another one. The text goes on to say, "For I needed clothes, and you clothed me." Dr. Morgan, how have the president's policies been for poor, unemployed, or unhoused Americans?
The tax cut alone had a massive effect on low-income families. Low-income families actually lost money under H.R. 1 to the tune of about $1,200.
That's the one big, beautiful bill.
That's right. But the Trump administration has also taken other actions that directly target poor and unhoused families. The Trump administration has attempted to impose time limits and work requirements on rental assistance. They've proposed cuts and changes to programs that support the homeless. And then rising utility costs are also hurting the poorest families as well.
Matthew 25 says, "For I was sick and you looked after me." What about the president's healthcare policies, especially when it comes to healthcare affordability?
This is really an acute problem for families right now. We've seen cuts to Medicaid that have taken insurance away from families. We've seen the failure to extend the ACA premium tax credits that has jacked up the cost of health insurance premiums for many American families. We're also seeing increasing costs on employer-sponsored plans. So people are really faced with the choice right now of being uninsured or choosing kind of like a skimpier health insurance plan in order to get coverage. And at the same time,
the Trump administration and Washington Republicans cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid. They call it waste, fraud, and abuse. Is it fair to say they cut more than waste, fraud, and abuse?
That is correct. They cut care for American families.
For I was a stranger, the text says, and you invited me in. How has the Trump economy been for law-abiding immigrants and dreamers living in the shadows?
We've seen a kind of xenophobic attack on our immigrant neighbors. We're seeing families who are afraid because of the actions of ICE to go to work and to send their families to school. It's incredibly crushing both for those families and for their communities and those of us who live among people. And then we've also seen these attacks to try to take away benefits and programs from law-abiding immigrants. So it's hugely concerning.
Yeah. So who's served by this economy? That's a long range of people who seem to be suffering. Who's served by the economy, the Trump economy?
I mean, it serves the rich, right? It serves Donald Trump himself. It serves his billionaire colleagues, and it serves the banks who are represented here at this hearing, who have gotten the Trump administration to roll back protections for working families in order to maintain their profits.
All right, I'm a few seconds over, and so I'm going to bring this to the chair. But Donald Trump has been president for 18 months. And while he and his advisors love to blame Joe Biden for rising costs, Americans elected him to lower costs. He's been at it for 18 months. He's raised costs for everybody, shredded the safety net meant to catch people during tough times. This Trump economy isn't just bad. For me, it's a moral abomination. This is bigger than politics. It's about humanity. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Senator Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brown, as you know, the Road to Housing Act passed the Senate yesterday. We expect it to pass the House today and hopefully be signed by the president very soon. There are many important parts of the bill. I think the bill is significant. There are some who say that it's not, but I think it's a significant bill that will go a long way to help solve the housing crisis and help your members do what they do to serve families. One part of the bill that I authored along with Senator Warner on the other side is called the Reside Act. That's fairly common sense, but it would allow communities to compete for grants and take empty warehouses, old factories, dead strip malls, shuttered hotels, and then turn those structures into housing. I had a lot of mayors across Indiana, Republican and Democrat mayors of small towns, big cities, all agree that would be a new tool for them that they could use to solve the housing shortage in their communities. But I wonder if you agree that would be helpful. What are some other parts of the Road to Housing Act that you think are significant that will go a long ways to helping us address this issue?
I do agree in that. I think that's a very important provision. There's lots of underutilized commercial structures throughout America. They're just sitting there vacant. In fact, in my own.
It's funny how all these MAGA cult members get their panties in a twist when they hear about, somebody that's down on their luck needing, some like EBT or something, when their orange god over there is stealing billions and billions of dollars and looting all these countries.
We sold a commercial warehouse in an opportunity zone to a buyer who then developed it into residential units. And I think that is a great example of how you can take an underutilized commercial structure that's not producing anything, housing or income or anything, convert it to actual living units where people can live. I think that there's a lot of provisions here, especially the streamlining of the process to reduce costs, helping out with zoning, helping out with reducing the environmental layers of environmental in terms of developing housing. I think that's very important. This just hits so many areas that's going to reduce time and reduce costs and streamline processes. But back to your original comments, I think that's a very important part, especially as it pertains to opportunity zones.
Not maybe the bill's not a silver bullet, but will go a long way. You believe that?
Yeah, I think it will over time. I think it will.
Is there a silver bullet out there that the committee should be looking at that would address the housing?
We haven't come up with a silver bullet yet, but I hope that
it's like if you break it down, I think the average person that's on EBT just gets like $2,000, what is it? Yeah, like $1,200, like $2,000 a year. Like Donald Trump wipes his butt with that.
Really looks at More Homes on the Market Act. I think that, I made comments when I first started the hearing that I really believe that if we can double the capital gains exclusion, it's going to add instant inventory to the marketplace. And in doing so, it's going to reduce some of the housing crisis.
Yeah, which I fully support. Ms. Johnson, can you talk about why mortgages are costing more? I mean, what are the rules and regulations and fees that are being added that's making mortgages so darn more expensive than what they used to be?
Thank you for the question. The last 10 to 15 years in particular, it's really been a combination of heightened capital requirements. There's regulatory scrutiny that banks, non-banks all have to go through. There's litigation risk, there's operational burdens. And so there's been a focus on, one, the supply issue, which we think is first and foremost the most important thing. But there's also been an intent focus from the administration of increasing bank participation. I think that there is a real need to increase bank participation in this market so that you have more competitive options for borrowers. And we're excited about the executive order. We've been very pleased that there's a recalibration in the Basel proposal on mortgage. think that that'll go a long way to reduce costs.
Any big ideas we're missing here?
I think your focus on supply and using a carrot stick approach is absolutely the right one.
And Mr. Carbone, in plain terms, can you explain how dollar-backed stable coins lower everyday costs for people who are underbanked or paying too much in transaction and remittance fees?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Senator. Right now, the average remittance fee in America takes 6.5%. So for every $100 an American is sending overseas, the recipient is only getting $93.50. And
I mean, I guess if you just eat like RFK Jr. approved liver every day and some deep fried screwworm.
3 to 5 days to get there. With a dollar-backed stablecoin, they can send it instantaneously and almost for free. That is a huge example as well. We're already seeing after the Genius Act passed, cheaper, more competitive payment options for Americans. We're starting to see merchants start to incentivize users, like gas stations incentivize users to pay cash instead of credit, incentivize users to pay with dollar-backed stablecoins. Regal Cinema right now is getting 10% off all tickets and concessions if you pay in dollar-backed stablecoins instead of using credit or cash. So the Genius Act is working. We're seeing more competitive payment options for payments and for remittances.
Good to know. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, sir. Senator LBR.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you also to the witnesses for being here today. I want to start off by just expressing my deep gratitude to the chairman and the ranking member for your leadership and all of my colleagues on the passage of the bipartisan 21st Century Road to Housing Bill. This landmark legislation is something that I think America's been waiting for over 3 decades. And so I am just grateful to the members here who worked on it. I think we took a great step forward in addressing our housing supply crisis. Many of the bills that I secured in the package will empower local communities to tackle housing affordability by encouraging zoning reform, reducing red tape, and unlocking innovation. Looking very forward to seeing that become law, and also looking forward to Road Point 2.0, just putting it out there, manifesting that. And finally, I want to extend appreciation as well to the House members for passing, because we're going to speak that they're passing it, and we will see it signed into law. And today, as we talk about the housing affordability crisis, we also think about the broader crisis of affordability. And I know the chairman talked about the One Big Beautiful Bill putting forward $250 a month for many American families, but all I could think of were the calls and the people that I see in my own state, folks who are paying $50 to $80 to fill up their gas tank, constituents who have written in and said, because of the lack of ACA tax credits, I now have chosen to just give up insurance, which means that health insurance could roll into medical debt, and it has an impact on all of our costs. I think about folks who are food insecure right now, and the cost of food, whether it's at the supermarket or if you could even go to a restaurant. And I don't think that covers what people are feeling. And so for me yesterday, I was able to, with my congressional delegation, Senator Coons and Congresswoman McBride, we held a roundtable for veterans in our state. It was a veterans roundtable, and at the roundtable we had representatives from different veterans organizations, and then we held a resource fair in addition to the roundtable. And we kept coming back to this issue of cost and them not being able to afford to live. These are people who are our neighbors. These are people who have served this country and who are serving this country. And between the issues of homelessness, the issues of suicide, the issues of, again, just being able to make ends meet, it really became clear that they are feeling the brunt in a way that many of us don't even feel. And so, Dr. Morgan, I wanted to ask you about the CFPB, which has historically played an important role in enforcing the Military Lending Act and protecting service members from predatory financial practices. Has the CFPB reduced its enforcement of the MLA?
The CFPB has reduced its enforcement of the MLA, yes.
And has reducing that
Man, under Trump's economy, once you step a foot out of your front door, that's already $200.
hurt affordability for military families? And can you talk a little bit about how?
Yes, absolutely. And I just say to your earlier point, there is research that shows that those tax cuts are really wiped out by the cost of the war with Iran. So, when people are coming to you and saying this doesn't add up, it doesn't add up. But in terms of, military members, the CFPB has stepped in over the years many, many times to protect military service members, from predatory practices by lenders, by allotment processors, student loan servicers, and others. And then under the Trump administration, we've seen this massive dialing back of enforcement and supervision to the point of non-existence. And people don't even have a place to file a complaint anymore. And this really lands hard on military service members. And in fact, the CFPB has actually walked away from lawsuits and settlements that would have put $80 million back into the pockets of military service members who were subject to illegal practices.
Hi, Nick. Bye, Nick.
Standing that since 2011, service members from all 50 states and every military base have filed more than 400,000 complaints to the CFPB, and that there was a complaint database. Can you just tell us, why was the Office of Service Member Affairs at the CFPB created in the first place, and what are the consequences of weakening the protections as well as lessening the staff and shuttering offices?
It's a really good question.
You only have about 15 seconds to answer this question.
Financial.
Could I have the time that Louisiana had?
No, ma'am.
A little bit longer.
I will just say very quickly that financial readiness is a critical component of military readiness. So when people are distracted by dealing with predatory lenders at home, or when their security clearances are held up based on a debt collection that they shouldn't owe, that affects our ability to fight wars and to keep our country safe. So this is a really critical component of the overall picture on defense.
Thank you. These are the people who protect us. We deserve, and they deserve to have our protection as well. Thank you, and I yield back.
Senator Moreno.
Well, let me just start my portion by complimenting you, Mr. Chairman, and actually our ranking member. I think got done here in the Road to Housing Act.
Oh man, this guy right here. Who's this guy's name? Senator Bernie Moreno. And this guy's another clown right here.
Monumental. It obviously also is an indictment on the person who used to occupy your chair, because obviously he was unable to get anything done. So to both of you, kudos, and to your predecessor, shame on you. In terms of where we've been hearing a lot about today is the word hoax. Now, I learned English as a second language when I was about 6, 7, 8 years old. Some would say I still haven't learned it completely. The word hoax can sometimes be made to seem that something's not real, but it actually means deception, that there's a deception going on. Mrs. Johnson, what was the average inflation, cumulative inflation during the Biden years? Do you know?
I know it reached a peak of 9.1%.
It did. So cumulatively, it was 21.5%. Under President Trump, it's cumulatively 5%. Your represent bankers is 5 less than 21.5.
Yes, it is.
It is. So when somebody creates 21.5% of cumulative inflation, and then the next person creates 5% cumulative inflation, and the people who did the first part blame the second one for price increase, it's a hoax. So we got that out of the way. Now, Mrs. Johnson, I do want to talk about some of the things that have been brought up about banks. Why do you post deposits after withdrawals at most of your financial institutions? Most banks, for example, in Ohio, that receive deposits, those deposits don't credit the person's account until after withdrawals, and a lot of that results in overdraft fees. That's something that you guys can either do voluntarily, or you're going to make us pass a law to do that, because it's crushing working Americans and it's fundamentally unfair.
Well, thank you for the question. Look, there is a lot of technology on the back end, and a lot of things.
Just do it the right way. Just do it the right way. You shouldn't have people whose paychecks are coming in and you don't take that into account until after you've counted all through as well. It's just bad practice. Just don't do bad things and make us have to do that. In turn, you were talking about also these 0% interest offers. Nothing has crushed working Americans more than 0% interest offers, where now you have compounding interest that's due as a result of these offers. And these people get absolutely destroyed and crushed. Don't do things like that. And certainly don't take a victory lap for offering those types of things. All you do is you give an opening to the people who think that that kind of bad behavior is unnecessary.
Could I give just a quick response here?
Sure.
So a couple of things. One, APRs are comprised of a number of different things: cost of funds, credit risk, fraud, operational costs.
I get all that.
Increase in APRs has been driven primarily.
I'm talking about compounding interest. The fact that you send people magic checks that make them think that it's 0% interest. They miss the payment by one day, and you pay retroactively for every single month. Yeah, I'm just telling you. Look, if you want to have if you want to have good cooperation from people who care about working Americans, which is Republicans and Democrats, don't do things like that. That's just my advice. You can take it or not take it. In terms of you, Mr. Brown, what is the position of the National Association of Realtors when it comes to the institutional investor ban? Institutional investor ban?
Yes.
Prohibiting large, giant Wall Street firms from buying homes in the MLS, competing with ordinary Americans. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think that institutional investors are a problem in some communities. They're certainly not the cause.
I'd say there's a cause. Do you support not having institutional investors compete with individuals to buy a home? Yes or no?
Yes.
You do? Good. Okay, perfect. And I'll turn over to you, Dr. Morgan. Sorry. What does a dozen eggs cost today?
The last time I bought them where I lived, it cost about $7.
Oh my God, you need to move. You would fail the prices right dramatically. The average price of a dozen eggs is $2.19. We are going to send the police after the grocery store where you do business. Do you know what it was under Biden? Obviously you don't, because you didn't know now. It was $2.65. Is $2.19 less than $2.65?
It is.
Okay, perfect. So then prices for eggs have gone down from Biden to Trump. What's the price of a barrel of oil today?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think it was $100 a barrel.
It's 73.
Okay.
What was the average price during the Biden years?
I don't know.
It was 82. So the price of a barrel of oil has come down. What is the price of?
The Senator Bernie Moreno is a moron. He's just a bunch of just spews out nothing but lies.
But what is the most commonly used fertilizer for farmers?
I don't know.
It's nitrogen. What is the cost per ton under Biden for nitrogen fertilizer?
I don't know, but can I?
So it's $1,000 a ton. It peaked out at $1,600, and now it's $800, half of the peak under Biden.
Is it all right?
Let me just you are not the contestant on the next Price is Right. You would not do well.
Okay.
In terms of electric vehicles, do you think it's good public policy to offer $7,500 to multimillionaires to lease foreign?
Yeah, I think he's getting these numbers straight out of Trump's diaper, because it's nothing but crap.
Vehicles.
I don't believe that's happening.
No, it's not happening. You're exactly right. That one you got correct. It's not happening because Republicans got rid of that in working families tax cuts. It was absolutely happening under the Biden years. In fact, 250,000 people got $7,500 to lease luxury electric vehicles. Was that a good decision or a bad decision?
Senator Moreno, I think these questions are very important, but I just have to say Donald Trump is the president right now, and prices are extraordinarily high. People are
not eggs, not oil, not fertilizer, and now we have.
I just think
now we have
prescription
drugs.
Going to work.
Prescription drug prices on Trump.
Man, these guys are just master gaslighters over here.
Are down 85 to 95% for 836 of the most commonly used drugs. So my point is that when people create a forest fire and then blame the other person for said forest fire, I would call that a hoax. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, you now have 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. To you and Feliz cumpleaños to our ranking member who just had a birthday yesterday. This was the saddest exchange that I've seen. And with all due respect, I think it really does underscore the problem that we have in our country right now. Too often in these bodies, I think the people who sit here don't shop like the people that we represent. They clearly are so out of touch. with all due respect, my colleague just said that the price of eggs is $2 and something. I don't know what in the world grocery store. I don't know that people even
I just bought some eggs and it was like pretty much $7.
For themselves, because I'm in the grocery store every week.
Yeah, I just got a dozen eggs the other day. It was like $7 over here in Los Angeles.
$7
under Biden, they were like $3.
For a dozen eggs, and that is the issue that we face right now. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about affordability because the reality is that in this administration, we are now in an economic disaster in our country. And this is not hyperbole. The people in America are tired of being told not to believe their lying eyes. Those who shop like, who buy gas, who pay for utilities, we are living a whole different existence, apparently, than the people who are supposed to represent us. These are the facts. 4.2%. This was May's inflation rate. And the prices have risen steadily under President Trump's administration. They are the highest, as a matter of fact, that they have been in 3 years, almost $4. This is the average national price for a gallon of gas. Gas is the most expensive that it has been literally in 3 years. $2,500. This is the estimated cost every American family is paying because of President Trump's tariffs in 2026. 1/3. This is the wealth control by just the top 1% of American households. So the American people do remember a year ago when this president did promise to end inflation on day one. Imagine how ridiculous that was. He promised energy and electricity prices would be slashed. This is not hyperbole. Go pull back the tape and we can see what he said. He insisted that housing prices would decrease. He said that he would make America affordable again. And he said the cost of groceries would go down on day one. But instead, it's harder to afford a down payment, purchase health insurance, take your family on vacation, put food on the table, or buy back the school supplies. This is the reality for the average American. Americans should know that this isn't coincidental. They understand it. It's because of the chaos, cruelty, and corruption that they have seen with their own eyes. The Trump tariffs continue to make groceries and other goods more expensive for business and for families. And last summer, despite rising prices, Republicans rubber-stamped Trump's cruel and callous bill that ripped health care and food assistance away from millions of Americans. And this failed war of choice in Iran has sown more economic chaos. It has raised gas and fertilizer prices. And if you look beyond the chaos and the cruelty, you also can see in plain sight the blatant corruption. The Trump family has made over $1.4 billion from crypto schemes, often leaving regular American investors with losses. A Trump family business is on the fast track now to become a bank, saddling everyday Americans and community banks with more risks. And fraudsters and scammers continue receiving presidential pardons because they are friends of this president. The loot, I have to tell you, the smash and grab that's happened with this administration means the loot is literally hanging out of their pockets. And they're betting that Americans won't pay attention. But while this administration continues to fail, we're working to make bipartisan progress. I'm so proud to be on this banking committee. I want to thank our chair and ranking member for the tremendous work that they have done on the Road to Housing Act, which the Senate passed last night. What a miracle it was to see it passed by such a large margin. And the Road to Housing Act is proof that Congress really can rise to the occasion and do what's right. And I am particularly proud of provisions that I champion, which will make it easier for banks to invest in affordable housing and create a federal grant program for people to make essential repairs to their homes so they're not forced to sell or to foreclose. While families are priced out of home ownership and the dream of a stable house is slipping away, Congress took a big step forward to expand the housing supply, reduce red tape, and make home ownership more affordable. Now, this is worth celebrating. Our kids deserve it. They deserve it. My 21-year-old daughter, who is so different than her grandparents, my parents married at 21 and 22, and within 5 years of their marriage, they could buy a modest home. The average age of a first-time home buyer is 40 years old. So Congress should continue to step up. And while this administration's chaos, cruelty, and corruption is occurring at every juncture, I will never hesitate, along with my colleagues who are willing, to roll up our sleeves and to work in a bipartisan fashion to address our shared goals. Thank you.
Yeah. That lady came through with the facts right there. She's awesome.
Senator, you're done?
Yes, you gave me an extra minute. I didn't even need it, but thank you so much.
That was good. Well, let me just say, for senators who wish to submit questions for the hearing record, those questions are due 1 week from today, Tuesday, June 30th. Witnesses have 45 days from that day with answers. I will say that this has been, frankly, I think a constructive hearing, not always positive, but always constructive. However, as it relates to the ranking member and I looked up the price of eggs so that we would be on the same page. Literally, the price of eggs go from about $1.79 at Wegmans in my neck of the woods, which I didn't have to look up because in South Carolina you can get eggs for about $3 a dozen. Elizabeth, ranking member, did find some for as high as $9 for eggs. I will simply say that the ability to compare prices from the Trump administration to the Biden administration, I'll take that comparison even now, almost any day of any week on any topic. The fact of the matter is that Senator Warnock and I had a conversation about having a Matthew 25 hearing at the Banking Committee, which I actually look forward to it, because if you start and read the entire chapter, it does give you some responsibility for those who have talent to do good things with that talent, 1, 2, and 5. It also goes into bridesmaids and lots of other conversations, but it does get to the place where we are asking ourselves really important questions about how we treat each other. Really important. I'm not sure that we always remember that when we're having a conversation with others, but I think it's incredibly important for us to recognize the importance of loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you. At the same time, taking a look at those who are struggling. There are multiple ways to try to address the issue. I think both sides try to do so. Sometimes
all of a sudden, this MAGA politician is trying to be like Martin Luther King. Get out of here, pal.
Republican as a guy who grew up in poverty in a single parent household, because after taking a serious look at the consequences of good policy and bad policies, not good intentions and bad intentions, I decided the best way for me to impact communities that are struggling is by being a Republican. However, on this committee, we should continue to have the type of engagement that allows the public to see disagreement without being disagreeable. And ultimately, I think that we achieved that goal today. However, I do look forward to the opportunity to have a discussion about Matthew 25 sometime in the near future. Hearing adjourned.
All right, hearing adjourned. He gavelled out. I was going to hit the hay, but there's this other hearing that's not that long. It's just an hour long. But I saw a clip of it, and Blumenthal starts to roast those fools. So let's check it out. Let me see if I can find it. Where would it be at? All right, here it is.
The delay in the Court of Appeal.
All right, so this hearing came out today too, as well.
The Court of Appeals.
All right, so this is about some Trump's judicial nominees. So this came out earlier this morning, or I don't know, I guess technically yesterday now. Let's check it out. It's 12 midnight over here in LA, California. So it's Wednesday the 24th now. But anyways, this came out Tuesday morning, which was yesterday. So it's pretty fresh. So it's worth a watch. Let's check it out. Continue our YouTubeville watch party. This one's titled, and appreciate everyone that's here hanging out, sharing your opinions, having a discussion, friendly banter. I like watching these hearings with YouTubeville. I like watching these hearings regardless, but everyone in the chat, makes it more enjoyable when we're able to all hang out and watch them together. But this one's titled, Josh Hawley leads Senate Homeland Security Committee hearing to consider D.C. judicial nominees. All right, here we go.
Thank the nominees for being here. What's the full docket we got in front of us? We look forward to hearing from you.
Hey, what's up, Saber? Oh, yeah, I saw you earlier. I meant to say what's up. I forgot. Hey, good to see you. You say, did you hear about Tulsi Gabbard cult affiliation? I didn't hear about anything about that, but it doesn't surprise me. What happened?
And despite the fact that my colleagues are fleeing the room, believe me, they're eager to ask you questions. It's great to have Ranking Member Kim here with me today. And I look forward to a terrific hearing. The children are welcome in the room as well. So the more the merrier. Let me just say a word about the significance of the day's hearing. We have many open spots, vacancies, both on the DC Court of Appeals and the DC Superior Court.
So this guy, Hawley, he's another MAGA clown right here. He's pretty much just another Trump rubber stamper that has no spine.
They are vitally important courts to this.
I can't wait for the blue wave tsunami to come through. And we'll take back the House and the Senate, and we'll be able to get rid of all these MAGA meat-riding politicians, and we can have some real politicians leading these hearings.
Of the capital city, to the well-functioning of the capital city. I think one indication of that is we have with us in attendance today the Chief Judge of the DC Court of Appeals, as well as the Chief Judge of the DC Superior Court. We welcome both of you. I think your presence attests to the significance of this hearing and the significance of the panels that we are going to be hoping to fill with these nominations today.
Oh, wow, Saber, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that. Thanks for bringing that up.
And significant backlog currently pending in the Superior Court, for example, more than 100,000 cases. 100,000 cases were pending in the Superior Court at the start of the last year. Tens of thousands of those remain unresolved this year. Criminal trials are now running months longer than they did just before the pandemic. Some homicide and violent felony cases, which are the most serious matters the city faces, won't see trial until 2027. You just think about the number of victims' families that are waiting for answers, defendants who are...
Yeah, we're still waiting for the justice. We're still waiting for on justice for all the Trumpstein, for all the victims from the Trumpstein files.
In jail without their day of court, and unfortunately all too often dangerous people back on the street while the docket sits untouched. The Court of Appeals has its own vacancy problems, ones that has gone unaddressed for years. Every empty seat on either court is a case that does not get heard in a timely manner, a docket that does not move, a family that is left without answers, and that is why this hearing really matters. Here's our order of procedure today. I'm going to turn it over to Ranking Member Kim to make his opening statement. Then I'm going to swear in and introduce briefly each of our nominees. With consent from my colleagues, which I hope that they'll give, we're going to enter your opening statements into the record. And then I'm going to give you a chance, in lieu of a lengthy opening statement, we'll put those into the record for you, but I want to give you a chance to introduce any family members or other special guests you may have with you today, and then we'll jump right into questions. But first, let me turn it over to Ranking Member Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you to you and Chairman Paul for moving forward with these nominees. And I'm appreciative of filling in for Ranking Member Peters for allowing me to step in today for this really important hearing. While this shouldn't be a spectacular thing, I also want to take note that the nominations before us today came through the proper channels via the DC Judicial Nominations Commission as required by law. To the nominees, congratulations, and thank you for your dedication to public service. For years, DC has struggled to fill local judicial vacancies. That is because, unlike states that have their own process to place people on the bench, in DC, we must follow a federal process of presidential appointment and Senate confirmation, despite the fact that these are not federal judges. Unfortunately, this has historically led to long delays in confirming new judges, and the DC legal and public safety systems have suffered as a result. Still, it's critical we move forward in this process and place forward and confirm judges who demonstrate that they are qualified during the vetting process. Filling the vacancies on the Superior Court and the Court of Appeals will allow DC to tackle its case backlog and give people timely access to their day in court. This is a unique role of this particular committee, and I think it's important for the members that we take this seriously, that we, on top of what we're trying to do with legislation, with federal level confirmations, the ability for us to be stewards and look after our capital is so important to play our role and to be able to lift up those that will be doing this work day in and day out. So again, thank you for stepping up, and I look forward to this hearing.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Kim. It's the practice of the committee to swear in our witnesses, so I'll ask you now to rise and raise your right hand if you would and respond to me. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? We'll let the record reflect all the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Now let me, without objection, enter each of your opening statements into the record. And now we'll just go down the line here. We'll start with you, Mr. Crowell. I'll have a brief introduction for each of you. And once I do that, we'll get...
So these are all of, all these people that are about to speak right now. They're all just a bunch of Trump rubber stampers with no spine.
Opportunity to introduce any family members or other guests you may have.
No experience and incompetent.
First nominee is James Crowell. Am I saying that correctly? Crowell, there we go. We'll get it right. Mr. Crowell, the Honorable Judge James Crowell. Judge Crowell is an associate judge in the Civil Division of the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. He previously served in leadership roles at the Department of Justice and as the United States Attorney in the District of Maryland. Judge Crowell has a long and distinguished career as well in the United States Army Reserves. Thanks for being here today. Next is Mr. Stuart Nash. Mr. Nash is a partner at Holland & Knight, where he practices in the white-collar defense and governmental investigations divisions. He previously served...
Oh yeah, I can't stand this Holly guy. He's the worst.
Associate.
Him and Bernie Moreno, they're both like kind of the same. They're just two smug pricks.
On the superior.
Yeah, him and Bernie Moreno. Yeah, Holly and Bernie Moreno's smug pricks.
Of the District of Columbia from 2010 to 2016. Before that, he had a long tenure as a prosecutor at both the Department of Justice and the United States Attorney's Office here in the District of DC. Welcome, Mr. Nash. Mr. Devano, am I saying that correctly, Mr. Devano? Okay, good. Mr. Christopher Devano, Senior Counsel at the DOJ's Office of Legal Policy, OLP, where he leads efforts to develop and implement DOJ's policy objectives, including those concerning drugs, firearms, violent crime, and digital assets. Before his service at OLP, he was a senior attorney with the DEA's Office of...
Look at this guy. This is the guy Trump nominated. He's got like no soul. Oh my goodness.
Oh. And he's worked in private practice at multiple firms. Welcome, Mr. Devano. Mr. Michael DeLorenzo is a deputy chief in the National Security Section of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, where he investigates and supervises matters relating to national security. Mr. DeLorenzo has a long career as a prosecutor. Before his current role, he was a prosecutor at the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of D.C., and the state of Maryland. Welcome, Mr. DeLorenzo. Next, we have the Honorable Sharon Goody. Judge Goody is an administrative law judge for the District of Columbia in the Office of Administrative Hearings, where she has served since 2005. She hears matters involving public benefits, homeless shelters, nursing homes, and mental health group home issues. She's also a commissioner on the district.
Look at that! Look at that person's haircut behind her. You guys see that person behind her? That haircut's hilarious. It's like a combination, like 80s bowl cut, like Beatles cut. Hey, you guys remember the Flurby? It was like a vacuum that could cut your hair. It was like an infomercial from the 90s. That guy got his haircut with a Flurby.
Via Access to Justice Commission. Before becoming an ALJ, Judge Goody was a prosecutor in the DC Attorney General's office. Thank you for being here, Judge. Next, we have Mr. Craig Lean. Mr. Lean is a partner at K&L Gates.
Oh my goodness. Look at this guy. Where does Trump find these people? It was like bottom of the barrel goons.
Before joining K&L Gates, Mr. Lean served as director of the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs at the Department of Labor. He also previously served as the city attorney for the city of Coral Gables, Florida. Two more. Miss Christine Macy. Miss Macy is a deputy chief.
Oh, okay. So that guy served in Coral Gables, Florida. That says it all. He's part of the Epstein class.
Felony Major Crimes Section at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. Before her current role, Ms. Macy served as a senior AUSA, that's an assistant United States attorney, investigating and prosecuting homicide cases in the D.C. Superior Court and fraud cases in the United States District for the District.
All right, sounds good, Saber. Yeah, I'm thinking after this hearing, I'll probably still hang out and transition to some other stuff and play some music or something.
Yeah, welcome, Ms. Macy. And finally, last but certainly not least, Mr. Timmer. John Timmer is a senior trial counsel at the Enforcement Division at the SEC. Before joining the SEC, Mr. Timmer served as an assistant U.S. attorney in the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C., where he investigated and tried cases in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, ranging from assaults to homicides. Again, welcome to all of you. Thank you again for being here. Now I'll just give you each a chance to introduce any family members or other guests you may have with you. We'll start with you, Mr. Crowell.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning for all of you, President. Thank you, Senator. Good morning.
He already failed. He forgot to turn on his microphone. You're fired.
All members of the committee. I'm joined this morning by my wife, Michaeline, our son, Jack, who was, I believe, 14 the last time we appeared before you, Senator. So he's grown up a little bit, but we're grateful to be back before you. And our daughter, Elliot, who is viewing from afar. She's on a service trip abroad. And then I'm also joined by Chief Judge Blackburn Rigsby of the DC Court of Appeals, as well as Chief Judge Tony Lee from my current court, the trial court here in the DC Superior Court. Thank you, Senator.
Fantastic. Welcome to your family members. And again, welcome to both of the Chief Judges. It's terrific to have you. Mr. Nash.
Thank you, Your Senator. Good morning. I'm joined here today by my wife, Mary, and my son, Christopher. I have two other children who are working, one outside the United States.
Oh, man. You mean to tell me you spawned? Oh, no, we got some more MAGA morons running around.
And one up in New York City, and we're not able to be here, but I think are watching remotely. I'm also joined by two of my work colleagues at Holland and Knight, Bill Gould and John Brownlee. We started together in the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. in 1997 and have worked together on and off ever since. And I also have family friends, Mike Flanagan and Jocelyn Dyer, with me today.
Terrific. Very good. Mr. DeBono.
Senator, I am joined today by my wife, Alyssa Kempler, who's behind me today, and then my two children are here as well, my son and my daughter. My parents came to see the hearing today, and my father-in-law is here as well, and I have a ton of friends and colleagues that I hope are watching.
Fantastic. Mr. De Lorenzo.
Good morning, Senator. And I'd like to thank my family who has been supportive throughout my legal career, including my mother, who's watching from above, Marion, my father, Henry, my wife, Paula, and our two boys, Michael and Christopher. Unfortunately, they can't be here. They due to a family commitment, but they are watching. But thank you.
Very good. Judge Goody.
Thank you, Senator. I'm joined by my son, Daniel.
Fantastic. Mr. Lane.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Senators. I'm joined today by my wife, Dr. Ana Maria Munoz-Lean, my college sweetheart. We met at Georgetown in 1994. And I'm joined by my son, Pierce Lean, who attends School Without Walls here in the district. And I do want to mention my daughter, Alexandra Lean. She's not here today. She's autistic with intellectual disability. She attends St. Colette of Greater Washington, but we'll celebrate with her tonight.
Fantastic. Ms. Macy.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning. I'm joined today by my husband, Sean, seated behind me, as well as my parents, Denise and George McIntyre, who traveled from Michigan to be here today, as well as my son, who's made some vocal appearances, and hopefully that will stay at a minimum.
It's most welcome. Any interventions are very welcome. Mr. Timmer.
Good morning, Senator and members of the committee. I'm joined here today by my wife, Jennifer, my aunt, Barbara Timmer, and my aunt, Catherine Benheim. Watching from afar is my mother in California, Susan Timmer, and my...
Did that guy just say he brought his barber with him?
Our two daughters are at summer camp right now, so they are nowhere near a screen.
It's probably a good thing. They'll come home to good news, hopefully. I'm going to defer my questions, and so we'll begin questions now. We'll do 5-minute rounds, and we'll begin with Ranking Member Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Again, thank you to all of you for joining up here. I want to really be able to use this to hit home what the impact of these vacancies are to the district and to help people understand, especially here at the federal level, why it's so urgent that we move forward, to be able to move forward with this panel, but just writ large, to be able to make sure we're doing better to be able to keep up.
Oh, hey, what's up, Bug? No, this is like a hearing for Trump's for these like Trump appointed nominees, judicial nominees for Washington D.C., some like federal judges or something. But I'm looking forward to the part where Blumenthal starts grilling him. At some point, Senator Blumenthal is going to give it to him.
So in particular, Mr. Kroll and Mr. Nash, I wanted to start with the two of you. You know, you're certainly aware of just the challenges that we're facing right now when it comes to the judicial vacancies. Currently, there is over a roughly 20% vacancy rate on both the DC Superior Court and the Court of Appeals. And the failure to replace these nominees has meant that the city cannot effectively administer justice. Can you help us, help explain what the problem is when it comes to this growing number of vacancies? How does that impact public safety in DC? Mr. Crow, I'd like to start with you.
Thank you, Senator. With respect to the impact of the unfilled vacancies, first, we are so grateful. As a sitting trial judge on the DC Superior Court, I am especially grateful. I know Chief Judge Lee is as well for you considering the nominees here today for both the Court of Appeals and the trial court. With the lack of judges, it decreases, as Senator Hawley observed, the number of cases we can hear. The average judicial officer in my civil division that I'm currently in, I spent the 4 years in the criminal division. I spent 3 years in our family court division, and the numbers are skyrocketing. They are quite high. And I work as absolutely hard as I can, but there are only so many hours in the day. And we can't get to all the cases, and it does create that backlog. And those numbers are real. Those cases are real. The litigants are real. And those delays are felt by those who are not able to get justice.
Mr. Nash?
Well, thank you, Senator. On the one hand, I feel a little bit odd talking about the difficulty in moving nominations through the process because Judge Kroll and I were nominated just this month, and so this committee has moved with great alacrity to put us on this panel and to do this hearing, and certainly everyone sitting in the dais this morning and the staff behind has nothing to.
This guy left his house this morning and looked in the mirror and thought his hair looked cool.
With the delay in the Court of Appeal, filling Court of Appeal slots, because you all have been nothing but gracious in moving our nominations along at quite a great clip. But Senator Hawley, I think, in his opening remarks, really put the statistics to this problem. One of the seats that I guess the seat that technically that Judge Kroll was nominated to has been open now for 13 years. So it's been at least 13 years since the Court of Appeals has had its full slate of judges. And so, I know Judge Kroll by reputation. Myself, I know both of us are really looking forward to rolling up our sleeve.
Oh man, honestly, I think Narco Bubio probably changes Trump diaper for free. He probably enjoys doing it.
Getting to work, given our experience in the Superior Court, I think we're in a position to hit the ground running when we hit the Court of Appeals. And if we're fortunate enough to be confirmed and forward to doing our share to try to drive those numbers down and get the point. I mean, right now I'm a consumer of justice in the District of Columbia. I'm a practicing lawyer, and it takes a long time to get a decision, both in the Superior Court and the Court of Appeals, and we're committed to do what we can to make that.
Hey, what's up, Hope? That's bogus. Trump, during Trump's first administration, he asked Epstein to be on his cabinet. So that's all bogus right there. Your comment already got debunked.
It's something that makes everything not just slower, but more expensive and just more difficult to be able to navigate for everybody. Is that right?
There gets to be a point, honestly, on the civil side where litigants will decide that they're just going to settle their matter rather than wait interminably for a trial or Court of Appeals. And it wasn't that way when I was serving on the Superior Court 10 years ago. This is a problem that is, for whatever reason, become more of a problem in recent years.
Yeah.
And
it has that impact. I mean, it makes, as you said, people start to not believe in the system in terms of its ability to function. And, this is by virtue of the values that our country has in terms of giving people their day in court and being able to do that in a timely manner. And I just think at a time when there's such distrust in government, we need to show that we're doing the nuts and bolts and being able to deliver in that type of way. So again, I'm very grateful to Chairman Hawley as well as Chairman Paul of the full committee for moving this forward, for recognizing that this is an important function of this committee.
I think Hope is a Truth Social bot that got lost somewhere in the internet.
Necessary for our capital. With that, I'll turn it over.
Very good. Mr. Nash, if I could just start with you. You wrote an opinion piece in the Washington Post in which you state, and I'm going to quote now, the D.C. Court of Appeals has become a substantial and underappreciated obstacle to reducing the city's high rate of violent crime, regardless of who has control of the police. Could you just elaborate on what you meant by that and what perspective you might bring to this position in light of your views here?
Thank you, Senator. My opinion piece related to a specific case that came to my attention.
Oh yeah, Trump can't even fix a reflecting pool.
As you know, the Court of Appeals sits in 3-judge panels, and the Court of Appeals rendered a decision in a criminal case where 2 of the 3 judges.
Trump killed all the ducks. Trump murdered all the ducks in the reflecting pool with chemicals.
On the panel, a unanimous decision overturning a gun conviction. 2 or 3 of the judges on the panel said in writing in their opinions that they were uncomfortable with the way that they were coming out. They believed that their decision was inconsistent with Supreme Court precedent, and yet they felt compelled by the precedents of the D.C. Court of Appeals to come out the way they did. I practiced law for a long time. I had never seen a decision come out unanimously with 2 of the 3 judges saying they didn't agree with their own decision. And I thought that was an interesting enough phenomenon that it was worth writing about. I looked at the case. I came to the conclusion that in my piece, I came to the conclusion that the judges who had expressed reservations about the opinion were right. That's what I wrote in the opinion piece, and it turns out that I wrote that last August. This winter, the U.S. Supreme Court weighed in on the decision and reversed the D.C. Court of Appeals, not in the specific case that I wrote about, but in another case on that same issue, saying that the issue that I wrote about, the D.C. Court of Appeals, should be reversed.
This was DW versus the United States, I think was the case. Is that correct?
That's the one I wrote about. The one that the Supreme Court later wrote is confusingly enough called United States versus RW, but same issue, different case.
Well, sticking with the DW case, this is the Court of Appeals panel, as you said, threw out a defendant's gun crime conviction, even though, if I remember correctly, you correct me if I'm wrong, the defendant's lawyers admitted at trial that the defendant illegally possessed a firearm.
That's true. That's not an unusual circumstance. The defense was that the police had acted inconsistently with the Fourth Amendment, and so it's not uncommon for lawyers to challenge the Fourth Amendment issue if they lose on the Fourth Amendment issue.
This is because not to interrupt you, but just to be mindful of the time here, this is because the D.C. Court of Appeals had previously held that running away from officers unprovoked, this is a quote from the controlling precedent, does not provide a reasonable basis for suspecting that individual being involved in criminal activity. You said in the op-ed, most non-lawyers would, I think, concede that unprovoked flight provides an officer with sufficient reason to establish whether the fleeing individual might be involved in criminal activity. That seems very commonsensical to me. Here's my question. Here's really what I'm driving at. What does this mean for your approach to the role? If you're confirmed to this court that you've written about, does that mean that in cases, let's abstract from this particular precedent, in cases where you think that the court's precedent or previous cases is wrong, will you push to have those reviewed at bank? I mean, give me a sense of what this means about your approach to the job.
Well, I guess I would say to begin with, Senator, that I am not seeking this position because I plan on bringing a particular my theory of judging is that every case should come before a tribunal that has an open mind and is going to hear the evidence, both the facts and the law, and apply them in a
Good Lord. This guy is not qualified to be a judge.
As fashion. So I do not want to anyone to suggest that my editorial that talked about a single case that I thought was wrongly decided is reflective of me trying to bring an agenda to the court. That being said, I think what the editorial demonstrates is that when I see something that I think is unjust or not consistent with precedent, I am not shy about making my feelings known on that. And if I get fortunate enough to be confirmed and I get to the court, if I'm on a 3-judge panel and 2 of the judges disagree with me, I am not going to be shy about expressing my opinion. I think, as my editorial did, I think I do it in a respectful fashion. I anticipate I would continue to do it in a respectful fashion. I served on the Superior Court for 6 years, and I think I had a reputation of being a measured and respectful judge, and I would hope to continue that if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed to the court.
Good, very good. Judge Crowell, let me just ask you before I return to Senator Kim. Before you became a judge, you had a long career as a prosecutor. Drawing from your experience, both as a prosecutor and now your years on the bench, do you think that DC's criminal laws are being under-enforced, over-enforced, enforced about the right amount? What's your sense of it?
Senator, I appreciate the question. I think that on the restrictions on me that wades into public policy, I would be reluctant as a sitting judge to speak to matters of public policy. The judicial canons greatly restrict me from commenting on matters of public policy. What I can tell you is, as a federal prosecutor, I fought against violent crime. I sought justice for victims, and I woke up every day fighting for those victims, seeking justice for those victims, whether it's RICO, violent crime cases. That was my bread and butter. And what I've experienced when I served in the criminal division of the Superior Court, the volume of cases is significant, and there are issues that need to be addressed.
In your experience and as a general matter, do tough sentences help deter violent crime or no?
My experience is they do. I believe that there's a statute that provides what courts must consider in determining sentences. Amongst those factors and deciding a holistic fashion is specific deterrence as to that offender, as well as general deterrence as to the community. There's rehabilitation. There's also the nature and circumstances of the offense. And in crafting a decision, a judge is statutorily required to consider each of those factors in balancing a decision, but absolutely specific and general deterrence has a significant factor.
Senator Kim, anything further?
I'd actually like to build off of that, but I'd like to ask this to the nominees for the DC Superior Court. That issue about balancing, that issue about trying to weigh and using your judgment on that, on these cases that could be before you. I try to think through, the challenges when it comes to crime committed by younger individuals in Washington, D.C., a trend that unfortunately we've been seeing on the rise. And I wanted to ask each of you to just give me a sense of how do you balance that importance of accountability when it comes to our rule of law with the potential of rehabilitation, with the potential of continuing to try to shape young people who have their whole lives ahead of them. How do each of you think through that and will approach that if confirmed into these jobs? So, Mr. DeBona, why don't we start with you and we'll go down the line.
As Mr. Judge Kroll said, as a judge, I'll be confined to the D-code provisions on sentencing and the factors that I'll have to consider, which is specific deterrence, general deterrence, rehabilitation, and any education that can be provided to the defendants. And I think that is important. I think it's important to keep individuals that are a threat to the community out of the community. And then I think it's also important that before individuals are returned to the community, they know or pose a threat, particularly for younger individuals that are likely to re-enter the community, that they are in a position where they can do so and that they're fully rehabilitated and no longer in a position where they're going to cause harm to the community. And so if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, I'll look at sentencing based on the criminal history of the specific defendant, any pretrial sentencing recommendations, statutory penalties, and then try to craft a penalty that accomplishes all of the goals of sentencing.
Mr. Di Lorenzo?
Great, thank you. The sentence really has to be crafted to the individual, and that's the judge's role, as I would agree with my fellow nominee. And by doing that, you look at each case on its own, and you look at the seriousness of the offense, the characteristics of the accused, which includes, right, would include of the accused, their record as well. You also look at the impact on the victim, and the sentence, and again, deterring this defendant from committing that offense in the future. And that may very well be punishment. It may be rehabilitation. Another factor is deter others from committing that offense. So, it's every case has to be taken on its own facts.
That guy's having a microphone issue.
Ms. Goody?
I concur with my fellow nominees as.
Would you mind speaking into the mic, Lou?
Sure. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. I confer with my fellow nominees that it has to be done on a case-by-case basis. Certainly, what I look for is community safety. If this person is on release, is this person going to be safe in the community? Yes, sometimes no. And particularly, I prosecuted juveniles. Have the pre-sentence report. We'd get sometimes psychiatric reports, so we could get a better sense of what was going to best for this particular individual in the community. Also look at potential for rehabilitation and to rehabilitate this particular individual. Occurrence. If this particular individual is out in the community, what's that going to say at this particular? What's that going to say? So a number of things, and it's going to vary with each defendant or respondent.
I would follow the standards in the statute. I would, for a violent crime, it's important that you treat it very seriously. In the end, the goal of sentencing, when you look at all the standards, I've always taken it to be to make sure that this person does not commit another crime. And that can include rehabilitation, but that also sometimes includes a sentence that's commensurate with what they've done.
I concur with the sentiment of my fellow nominees in terms of each case needs to be looked at in the particulars of that particular defendant and the particular facts of that case. So working in the legal framework, I would of course start with any sort of requirements. If there's a statutory mandatory minimum at play, that of course has to be considered in the sentencing and followed. I'd also look at the sentencing guidelines that provide a parameter for judges as a starting point to consider what is assessed as a fair and reasonable sentence, that you can then apply the specifics of the case to that particular case and determine what the appropriate sentence is by looking at the factors in the DC code to include the nature and circumstances of the offense, the criminal history of the defendant, their personal circumstances. So to your question, their youth, their particular background, those considerations. And I would say that I would employ this approach as a judge very consistently with how I've done as a prosecutor for almost 14 years.
I think this is such an important issue as a parent here in the community. It's so important to be mindful of what you're raising. I echo a lot of what my fellow nominees have said about judging each case and each defendant on their own merits and applying the factors that are laid out by the code. I will add that the DC code, as it relates to juvenile justice, talks about some of the purposes of that code, and they are to rehabilitate and also to hold juveniles accountable for their actions. And I'm convinced that holding somebody accountable for what they've done is part and parcel of rehabilitation. Unless you've understood that you've done something wrong, you can't move forward. And so I think that's those are important goals that I keep in mind as if I'm fortunate enough to be and on cases like that.
Let me just ask now the Superior Court nominees. So starting with you, Mr. DeBono, and just as Senator Kim did, I just want to go down the line and give you each a chance to respond to a question or two. Let's come back to this notion of deterring violent crime. What is it that what is your understanding of what your role would be? Each of you have confirmed to this court what your role would be in deterring violent crime. Go ahead, Mr. DeBono. We'll start with you. Everybody will have a chance.
My idea of my role, if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, is to set a punishment sentence for an individual that's committed a crime that is commensurate with the crime, commensurate with the individual's criminal history, and is appropriate enough to deter that individual from committing further crimes, to protect the public safety, and to prevent others from engaging in similar activity.
Very good, Mr. De Lorenzo.
I would agree with my fellow nominee. I mean, as a prosecutor, I made recommendations for incarceration. As a judge, you're better suited because you see at the sentencing, you see the whole picture. It should look at the whole picture. And part of that is to impose a sentence that will deter this individual, and part of that is sometimes given a stiff sentence. But a piece of that is oftentimes to provide some sort of rehabilitation to get to the motive of what may have caused a crime, and that's getting some piece of rehabilitation. It may be drug treatment, maybe sort of some mental health treatment. So to fashion an appropriate sentence that deters this individual, deter others as well.
Judge Goody.
That guy's microphone is messed up.
And I concur.
With that big, beautiful bill, $170 billion, they can't even afford microphones.
Fellow nominee. I remember when I was a prosecutor, that there was a level of recidivism that was getting frustrating. And so what I would be looking at, if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, is has this person done this once, or has this person done this? What was put in place on that first time? Did it work? And what can I do for this person to hopefully prevent recidivism for that one person? Let the community know that I'm trying to prevent recidivism in a larger sense. So be looking at their past record. Is it the same thing over and over again, or is it different things? As many reports as I can get on psychiatric, psychological. If I'm in a juvenile delinquency court, I'd want to know I can't make sure, but how can I come closest to making sure that this person is not going to do it?
Mm-hmm. Very good, Mr. Lane.
Judges play a critical role in deterring crime. The way I would approach it is to apply the standards in the code as mentioned. But ultimately it's to avoid outlier sentences, to make sure you're applying a standard that's equal across the people that you see, obviously looking at the individual circumstances. But in the end, it's important that people know that if they commit a crime, they will be punished.
Ms. Macy.
I spent several years as an assistant U.S. attorney focused specifically on homicide cases, and that was just a fraction of my time as in the office. I also spent other years focused on other violent crimes. So violent crime I have seen up close, and I realize how significant of an impact it has on the defendants, the victims families, the defendants' families, and the community as a whole. So it's a matter that's very important to me. And as a judge, if I'm so fortunate to be confirmed, I would approach my role to addressing violent crime by proceeding fairly in the cases before me, by handling them efficiently so that defendants get their day in court, victims get their day in court, and ensuring that the rights of both perpetrators and victims are addressed and considered in crafting appropriate sentences for the particular case before me.
Mr. Timmer.
I'd echo what my fellow nominee, Ms. Macy, said. During my 7.5 years at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I practiced exclusively in Superior Court, first as a line attorney and then as a supervisor, and so saw firsthand the impact that the judges had on crime in the community, and agree with her that I think steps I can take are to follow the DC code, to impose sentences that are law and with the sentencing guidelines, and to work efficiently to ensure that if somebody commits a crime, is arrested, is charged, that they have their day in court and that day comes swiftly, so that it's the community can see for themselves that justice has not been denied and has not been delayed.
Judge Judy, let me just ask you if I could, just on the same topic. In 2022, you were on a panel at Brandeis University in which you said, among other things, there is no rehabilitation in prison. Just help me understand your thinking here, and here's where I'm going, as you can probably imagine. Does that mean that you would be hesitant to send a first-time offender or someone who you think, well, maybe this person could benefit from some rehabilitation? The sentencing guidelines call for or strongly suggest prison time, but I don't want to do that because there is no rehabilitation in prison. I want to do everything I can to avoid sending people there. I mean, take me inside your mind here and explain that to me.
Oh.
Just turn on your microphone there.
Sorry about that. Yes, I did say that. What I should have, let me first specifically answer your question, then go back. Or there's a difference between juveniles and adults, first of all. For juveniles, the standard is rehabilitation, so there's a focus on providing service. Concern about what happens in prison arose from when I was in law school and I actually taught at the Lorton prison. We used to house our prisoners in Lorton, now housed in the federal system. And I saw that conditions were not great for rehabilitation.
You know, I kept hearing about some guy named, like, for the last year or two, I've kept hearing about this case about some guy named Carmelo Anthony. I honestly never really looked into it or paid attention to it. What the hell is that all about? I'm guessing it's something that the MAGA cult members are using as a rallying cry for their agenda.
Where that came from. Your question was, would that make me hesitate to put someone in prison? No, community safety is my number one thing. If we can craft a rehabilitation package that makes someone safe to be back in the community, let's do that. But if somebody can't be made safe in the community, then so is prison.
Let me ask each of you now, again, just the Superior Court nominees, in view of the backlog, the huge backlog that the court is currently facing, just give me your sense of what you would do to help address this huge backlog, how important you think it is, and what your role would be in making sure that these cases are heard, defendants get their day in courts, but also victims get the redress that they deserve. Let's start with you, Mr. Devano.
If I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, my role will be to efficiently expectations for the parties, set clear deadlines, be clear from the front about what I expect them to do and be prepared to do when they come to court, and then to show up with the same effort and to be prepared to handle the matters that come before me when they do appear. That way the cases are quickly handled, they're quickly and efficiently resolved and we're able to get justice for victims and appropriate sentences in place for offenders.
It's necessary to strike a balance between efficiency and fairness. And I've appeared before many judges. I've learned a lot from good habits and bad habits. In order to move things along, what I would do is, as if I were fortunate enough to be confirmed, is I would be the example to everybody in the courtroom. I would go in, and I learned this too. During my clerkship, my judge, William M. Jackson, who sat at Superior Court, I saw him do this. He was a career prosecutor, and he was on a family calendar. And what he did and what I would do is prepare. He was often, and I would be it would be aired lawyer in the court law. I read the pleadings and I'm ready to go. But in addition to being the example, it is essential, as my co-counsel, as my fellow nominee said, that expectations are set. And I found that in my experience, the best way to set expectations is to have a standing order. I found courts with standing orders where it's clear what the expectations are, move efficient courtroom, courtrooms run efficiently, and there is that fairness. And then also when there are egregious violations, a court has to be willing, there must be consequences when there's repeated egregious.
So I've drawn experience from when I clerked at Superior Court as well. I watched how Judge Harriet Taylor made sure to move a couple of dockets. She had a child abuse and neglect docket and she had a criminal docket. And I watched the systems that she used to keep up with new case law. We'd get slip opinions.
I think they should bring back Judge Joe Brown, Judge Marilyn Median, Judge Judy.
She'd read it, she'd file it, and she'd file it in her head. And I'm still using that to this day. I also have learned as an administrative law judge how to figure out which cases can move quickly and which ones need more time, put the ones that move quickly soon so we can get them resolved as soon as possible without thoroughly delaying the ones that are more complicated, sort of going back and forth between the resolve and the more difficult ones to resolve. And right now we have some of our highest caseloads at the Office of Administrative ever had. So I'm working on that right now. And I schedule hearings every 20 minutes, every 15 minutes, so I can move through those, make sure I can get to trials as quickly as I can. The other thing that I will be focusing on, should I be so fortunate to is courtroom civility. What I found is if I can be the role model for being civil to everybody in that courtroom, then people.
She sounds like she's just all talk. She's not going to be doing it every 20 minutes. She's going to be like on her lunch break every 20 minutes.
When it gets uncivil is when it slows down. So making sure that everybody is polite with each other, respectful with each other, but getting to the facts and getting to the law.
Mr. Chairman, when you mentioned the 100,000 case backlog, that is an enormous number. I would come into the job, if I get confirmed, seeking to be efficient and effective. I've come into several jobs where I had a big backlog when I came in, both at OFCCP and when I was city attorney. And I put a number of norms together right away with my staff. I sought to address cases quickly, fairly and quickly. I wrote a lot of decisions. I tried to rule on everything at once where I could. I published a lot of decisions so people could have an idea where I'm coming from and could cite to precedent. And I would also be an internal advocate within the court system to move cases. It's extremely important to move cases so that everyone gets their day in court.
In terms of my role, if I'm so fortunate to be confirmed of addressing the backlog, I think it has to start with preparation on my end of taking the bench, being ready for the cases before me, knowing the facts, having an agenda of what should be covered that day, and holding the parties to that same standard of coming prepared and setting the tone that you expect your courtroom to be run efficiently and for them to be prepared and make progress so that the hearing accomplishes as much as possible. I would draw on my experiences both as a law clerk in DC Superior Court. I clerked for the then Chief Judge Lee Satterfield and was able to see firsthand sort of process and ways to set up systems to approach cases efficiently. And also as an assistant U.S. attorney with very heavy caseloads, I've had to learn how to balance giving the cases the attention they deserve, but also moving efficiently and knowing how to prioritize things. So I would use all of those experiences and create a system on the court to move my cases efficiently.
I draw on similar experiences to my colleague, Ms. Macy. Walking in at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I joined the domestic violence misdemeanor section and was confronted with an enormous caseload, each one of which was deeply important to the person who had been a victim in that case. And so quickly learned how to identify which cases needed work urgently, work efficiently through them, and ensure that justice was done in each case. If I were to be so fortunate to be confirmed, I think a lot of my fellow nominees have identified a number of very important steps to take, which I would share. I think one very important thing to do is to communicate with litigants in advance of hearings. What is the judge interested in hearing about? What are the key issues? So that not just me as the judge, but the litigants, the parties have had the opportunity to consider the issue, come prepared to talk about it, hopefully deal with it all at once. And so one hearing doesn't turn into 2 or 3 or more.
I'll turn to Senator Blumenthal here in just a moment, but I've been advised repeatedly that unless I ask each of you the following question, the sky may fall in, your nominations may not move, hell may freeze over, and the Senate may get nothing done. Although, wait, that's already happening. So maybe we'll risk it though. Here's the question that I've got to ask each of you. Do you agree without reservation to comply with any request or summons to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of Congress should you be confirmed? Let's just go right down the line. We'll start with you, Mr. Crowell. Mr. Nash. Mr. Delano.
Without hesitation.
Mr. Del Lorenzo.
Absolutely.
Judge Goody. Mr. Lean.
Yes.
Ms. Macy.
I do.
Mr. Timmer.
I do.
Senator Blumenthal.
All right, guys, finally. This is the whole reason I'm watching this. It's for Senator Blumenthal. All right, Senator Blumenthal's going to grill it to all these Trump rubber stampers. Let's go. Hit the like button, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to smoke a bongler for this.
Each of you, how you will stand up to the administration, which is appointing you, if your independence is somehow challenged or at stake. What kinds of standards and self-discipline you would impose on yourself? Maybe we can just go right down the line.
Senator, as a sitting trial judge, there are significant restrictions with respect to how I might opine on matters of public policy. What I can tell you is I first took my oath at age 19 as a young private at Fort Benning, Georgia. I've repeated that oath as a soldier multiple times as rank increased. I've repeated that oath as a federal prosecutor in my multiple tours with the Department of Justice. And I've repeated that oath when I first appeared before this committee 7 years ago and received your approval. I will and have my promise then remains my promise today, which is to be a faithful servant of the Constitution. I will continue to do so.
Man, those guys don't even know what the Constitution is.
Senator, I guess first and foremost, I'm a patriot. And I believe that we are fortunate, all of us who are citizens of this country are fortunate that we have inherited some wonderful and
They all take an oath to the Orange Man, not the Constitution.
unique in the world institutions to protecting our liberties. One of the most important of those protections is judicial independence, the separation of powers that creates the judiciary. Is a real bulwark for liberty in this country, and fortunate enough to be confirmed, I would exercise that authority in the same way that I did my first tour of duty as a judge, which is independence and applying the law in the manner.
Well, let me just ask both of you, who won the 2020?
There it is. There it is, guys. The $1 million question. I love it when Blumenthal asks all these Trump rubber stampers this question. Who won the 2020 election? That's easy. Joe Biden won the 2020 election.
Well, let me just ask both of you, who won the 2020 election?
Senator, Joe Biden was certified as the winner by this body, the United States Senate, as the President of the United States, as has been the practice since 1804.
Mr. Nash?
I concur with that answer.
Let me go down the line on that question, because I think it's a sign of your independence. Who won the 2020 election?
Senator Biden was certified as the winner of the 2020 election.
Certified.
I concur with my fellow nominees' answer.
I concur as well. Joe Biden was certified as the winner of the 2020.
I concur.
Wow.
I concur.
I concur. You all concur.
The look on Blumenthal's face, he's just like, man, this is just a clown show. I feel you, Blumenthal. I'm making that same facial expression. It's just a clown show.
That's your independence with the script that the White House has given you, that Joe Biden was certified. Who won the popular vote, Mr. Crowell?
Senator, I'm going to take a page from Justice Jackson when she appeared before the Senate Judiciary. I am a sitting judge, and I am deeply restricted by the judicial canons.
My understanding is that the judicial canons apply to me as a
Hey, what's up, Tina Hara? How's it going?
candidate for judicial office, and that weighing in on that question would be inappropriate.
I'm prohibited under Canon 4 of the DC Code of Judicial Conduct from answering a question about that and wading into political matter.
That's correct. Canon 4, the judicial code prohibits me from answering that question.
As a sitting administrative law judge and as a nominee.
I concur.
I concur.
You all concur? Do you? You know how pathetic and absurd you sound to the American public. You know how absolutely unacceptable this kind of answer is, where you deny what the facts are. Let me ask you, Mr. Crowell, was the Capitol attacked on January 6th?
Senator, I was here in the city. I live right.
Here, I'll answer the question for you, buddy. Yes, the Capitol was attacked on January 6, 2021 by Donald Trump's goon squad. He summoned all his cult members to try to overthrow the government. That's what happened, pal.
On Capitol Hill, there was a breach of the Capitol. It was violent. There was law enforcement that was attacked. There was a violent breach of the Capitol. Yes, sir.
There was violence and the Capitol was attacked, correct?
Well, the Capitol is a structure. What I would say is there were individuals that were attacked, to include our law enforcement officers, the people that protect us here in the United States.
But you're unwilling to say the Capitol was attacked.
I think that goes into a
Mr. Nash.
Senator, my only knowledge of what happened on January 6th was media reports that I have seen.
Well, you've watched those reports. The Capitol was attacked, was it not?
Appears to me clear that there were crimes that were committed on.
What's your answer, sir?
I witnessed violence against law enforcement, which I do not condone. As a political nominee, or as a nominee for a judicial vacancy, I'm prohibited from the judicial canons from characterizing the events of that day any further.
There was public reporting that there were assaults on police officers, and I too absolutely would not condone that conduct. The senator used the word attack. Any type of political characterization would be appropriate to comment on under the judicial canons.
My knowledge is also confined to what I saw through the media. There were attacks on police officers.
There was violence and attacks on police officers and wrong.
It is a matter of public reporting, and I personally have seen police body-worn camera from January 6th of 2021, and I certainly do not condone violence against law enforcement, and that did happen that day. But beyond that, the judicial canons would prohibit me from characterizing the events of January 6th.
Like Judge Crowell, I watched the events from my home here on Capitol Hill, and I saw absolutely horrendous violence against officers, other people who were sworn to protect the Capitol. And
well, I understand you all condemn violence. We all abhor attacks on police. Not one of you is willing to say that the Capitol was attacked. Again, pathetic and ridiculous for anyone, but for a nominee for judicial office, I began asking how we can be sure of your independence. And nothing you've said here today provides me with any reassurance that you are going to be independent, that you're willing to stand up to the president when he or a member of the administration asks you to do something that is a violation of your judicial duties. This nation depends on the independence of our judiciary. We're seeing it now as a bulwark of our rights and democracy, despite the politicization and weaponization of the Department of Justice. And I am deeply disappointed that you're unwilling to say the truth that you all saw on that day. The Capitol was attacked, not just police officers. The Capitol of the United States was attacked in an effort to stop the lawful transfer of power. This goes beyond violence to any individual.
Hey, Tina Hanna, for sure. Yeah, Blumenthal, he's a powerful senator. He doesn't beat around the bush or sugarcoat anything.
Goes to the essential functioning of our democracy, and you're willing to apparently kowtow to the canned script that has been given you about certifying Joe Biden, about violence on January 6th, but not willing to say that Joe Biden was elected president of the United States, won the popular vote, and the Capitol was attacked on January 6th. I don't know how to put it more plainly, but I'm really ashamed.
He's like searching for the words and he wants to say some horrible shit, but he realizes he's at a hearing, so he's trying to get his point across with being PG still. But yeah, those Trump nominated judges, just a bunch of incompetent clowns.
Be disappointed. Thank you.
Anything else, Cam? I've just got one more thing. Mr. Lean, if you could help me with something. In the fall of 2020.
Well, I think I'm going to leave it at that. That was pretty nice right there. Blumenthal, good job, buddy. All right, I'm going to hit the hay, guys. I'll catch you guys all later. Hope you guys all have a good day. Thanks for everyone that voted. Let's see here. Out of 574 votes, we got, are you winning in Donald Trump's economy? And 66% of the people say they are not. So the American people have spoken, and that's how the blue wave tsunami is going to go come this midterms, guys. All right, everybody. I'll catch you guys all later. Thanks for hanging out, sharing your opinions. Appreciate everyone, and I hope you guys all have a good rest of your night, day, morning, wherever you're at. All right, later.